Part 49. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 481. When Bai Yuki came back with the milk, Nan Yan and Bai Xing had finished talking. After Nan Yan calmly took the milk from his hand, she finished the milk with a show. The meal afterwards was normal. After Bai Xing was no longer under any psychological pressure, he acted much more naturally, which made the atmosphere at the dinner table more harmonious. Bai Yuki acted like a silly boy, laughing harder and livening up the atmosphere. God, why, if you are free tomorrow, let's make an appointment for dinner together. After dinner, Bai Yuki drank a few glasses of wine and got a little drunk. He chuckled and tried to grab Nan Yan's hand. However, as soon as he reached out, Qin Lu stepped forward and stopped him. Bai Yuki didn't give up and wanted to grab Nan Yan's hand from a different angle, but was dragged over by Bai Xing. Bai Xing pulled Bai Yuki and said to the two of them, "Xiao Qi is drunk, I will take him back first." Yes, Nan Yan responded, and before leaving, he confessed, "If he comes to you again, just follow him. There is no need to go against his wishes." "I know," Bai Xing nodded, "if he contacts me in the future, I will notify Miss Nan as soon as possible." Good. After a brief conversation, the two parties parted ways. When Nan Yan returned to the car, her fatigue and drowsiness lost control and hit her twice as hard. She almost leaned back on the chair, closed her eyes and fell asleep. Qin Lu hugged her and put her on his lap so that she could sleep more comfortably. His hands clasped her slender waist, and there was a solemn look in his eyes. He knew that Nan Yan's current state was controlled by drugs, which made her increasingly sleepy and tired. If she hadn't been stimulated with acupuncture before, she probably wouldn't have been able to eat this meal well. He was worried whether he could still wake her up after she fell asleep. "Yan Yan, wake up." Qin Lu called her tentatively, still squeezing her face with his hand, using external force to stimulate her more. Just as he thought, no matter how much he screamed, Nan Yan couldn't wake up. He glanced sideways at the two gifts he brought up from Nolan. Perhaps, in Nolan's plan, Nan Yan is now in a comatose state, making it easier for him to take action. Qin Lu's expression was gloomy and cold, but he could only suppress the thought of wanting to go to Nolan's residence and capture Nolan now. He wants to wait. If Nan Yan still can't wake up after 2 hours, he will take action immediately. Go back to the hotel. #. On the other side, Bai Xing sent Bai Yuki back to his own residence first. After arranging him to lie on the bed and sleep, Bai Xing received a text message on his cell phone. Bai Xing now has a problem with short messages. I took it out and saw that it was Nolan again. After unlocking, click on the message. "How about it, have you given out the gift, did she open it live?" Bai Xing gritted his teeth. Then he replied according to what Nan Yan had said before, "Sent it, she opened it on the spot." Nolan looked at the message received on his phone, and the corners of his lips slowly raised. "Junior sister, we will be able to meet soon." After Bai Xing sent the message according to Nan Yan's wishes, he waited for nearly 10 minutes and received no more reply from Nolan. He breathed a sigh of relief and contacted Nan Yan to tell her about the matter. Nan Yan was asleep on the hotel bed at this time. The phone is on the bedside table. After Qin Lu carried her in, he didn't leave. He kept guarding her by the bed, so he heard the vibration of the phone when the call came. Qin Lu took her phone and entered the password with his slender fingers before seeing the message. It seems that Nolan's plan coincides with theirs. Both sides need to take action today. Qin Lu used Nan Yan's mobile phone to reply "I understand" to Bai Xing, and then put the mobile phone back on the bedside table. After Nan Yan slept for 2 hours, Qin Lu tried to wake her up again. After using all the ordinary methods, Nan Yan still showed no sign of waking up, and his emotions began to lose control. The desire for destruction and the desire for destruction are released at the same time. With a hint of red at the end of his eyes, he suddenly leaned down and kissed her lips. After the side-to-side kiss, he raised his hand to caress her face and whispered, "Yan, wait for me to come back." He went to catch Nolan and detoxify her. Elder brother. Nan Yan's murmur made him stand on the spot. Yan, are you awake? The hostility in Qin Lu's body suddenly dissipated. Nan Yan rubbed her brows and sat up. How long have I been sleeping? Her last memory was after getting into the car. Now that she wakes up, she is already in the hotel. It is estimated that she will not sleep short. 2 hours. Qin Lu sat beside her bed. Do you feel any discomfort? Nan Yan shook his head slightly. I don't feel anything other than low energy and fatigue. Brother, help me get the silver needle. This state is definitely not possible. She wanted to wake up as soon as possible. Qin Lu brought the silver needle, and she gave herself acupuncture without any delay. This time, more silver needles were used for acupuncture than before. Qin Lu doesn't understand Chinese medicine acupuncture points. If Hua Shifang or Tao Qingming were here, he would be able to see that Nanyan's acupuncture points at this time are very dangerous. That is to say, the master of Nanyan art is so bold that he dares to perform acupuncture on himself like this. If it were anyone else, even Hua Shifang would not easily perform acupuncture on the patient like this. Although dangerous, the effect is very significant. Within 10 minutes, Nan Yan's energy recovered and she seemed a little more excited than usual. After taking out the silver needle, Nan Yan first looked at the time. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. There was still time. Let's go to the hospital first. Hospital, laboratory department. Nan Yan tested the remaining medicine in the bottle that Bai Xing gave her. After analyzing the efficacy and ingredients in it, it took another 10 minutes to prepare the antidote. After drinking the antidote, Nan Yan was temporarily affected by the effect of acupuncture and was in a slightly excited mood, so she couldn't feel the effect. But she was confident in her ability. Nolan didn't want her life, he just wanted to use this method to control her, so the dosage was not so harsh, and it didn't do much harm to her body. After spending a total of 1 hour in the hospital, they returned to the hotel. After finding Nolan's residence with the notebook and Nolan was not there, Nan Yan said thoughtfully, "Brother, let's do a joint operation." "Qin Lu, what's your plan?" Nan Yan leaned her head and stared at him with her beautiful eyes. "I will first let him go and find out his purpose. Then, I will cooperate with you to catch him. It's not a very dangerous plan." But Qin Lu was worried and let her take the risk. "Change the way, just catch him directly. Nolan is so cunning, if we don't let him relax his guard, we probably won't be able to get the truth out of him." Nan Yan advised, "I have a way to protect myself, and now the virus in my body has been resolved. Nolan doesn't know about it and will think that everything is under his control. In this case, I can easily make him lose his ability to move, and he can't hurt me." Seeing that Qin Lu was still unmoved, Nan Yan grabbed his hand and acted coquettishly, "I promise that I won't get hurt, okay?" Qin Lu's expression was cold. "What if I get hurt?" "Nan Yan, I promise that I won't get hurt." "Qin Lu, what if?" Nan Yan bit her lip. "Then, I will listen to you in everything from now on, and I won't do anything you don't allow me to do. Although I really want you to be obedient, I care more about your safety." Qin Lu took her hand and put it on his chest. Yan, don't get hurt." Feeling this cherished emotion, Nan Yan felt a throbbing in her heart, and nodded seriously, "Okay." Nolan didn't seem to expect that he would be able to bring out the little junior sister so smoothly. He suspected that this was a trap. Given Nan Yan's intelligence and Qin Lu's ability, he shouldn't have succeeded so easily. But Nolan looked down at the girl sleeping in his arms, and a smile appeared on his lips. "Little junior sister, even if it's a trap, I jump for you." But you probably wouldn't expect that I'm also on guard against your trick. Wenhung said in his mind, Nolan, give me the control of your body, I want to hold the little junior sister. Just this way, I will give you the control of my body when we get on the plane. Nolan wanted to disagree with Wenhung's request. But thinking of their current relationship, he could only agree. Nolan, Wenhung, don't ruin our plan. Wenhung, don't worry, I know my limits. With his promise and the fact that he could forcibly take control of his body at any time if anything went wrong, Nolan temporarily handed his body over to Wenhung. Wenhung returned to his body and hugged Nanyan impatiently. Junior sister. Nanyan's eyelashes trembled. There was a strange feeling in her heart. The man holding her now seemed to be her second senior brother? But he didn't look exactly like her second senior brother. Nanyan was a little confused. Before she could figure out the situation, she didn't plan to wake up. She continued to close her eyes and pretend to be asleep, and by the way, see if she could eavesdrop on some useful clues. Wenhung liked Nanyan very much. When everyone was learning in Shenangjia before, Wenhung had a good impression of the only junior sister. But Nanyan was too young at that time. When Nanyan was learning medicine with Hua Shifang, she was only 13 or 14 years old, and it took her 5 years. Hua Shifang had nothing to teach her, so she had to practice and accumulate experience. In just 5 years, Wenhung watched her grow from a girl to a teenager, and he also grew from an 18-year-old boy to a man. At the age of first love, there was only Nanyan in his life. The memory of her is like an imprint in his mind, and it will not be erased no matter how time passes. If Nolan had not suddenly intervened and snatched his body, he would have lost control of his feelings for Nanyan and ran to find her. However, the appearance of Nolan not only changed his life, but also made him close his feelings for Nanyan for a time. Until this reunion, the emotions that he deliberately sealed not only revived, but also became his obsession. It was precisely because of his obsession that Nolan found an opportunity to use sweet words and fatal temptations to make him assimilated by him. Wenhung hugged Nanyan, and two completely opposite emotions of self-loathing and spiritual joy intertwined in his heart, but more of it was the surprise and satisfaction of regaining what was lost. He wanted her. Little junior sister, you will forgive me, right? He was in cahoots with the devil and could never go back to the past. But as long as he could keep the little junior sister by his side, he would not regret his choice. Wenhung's words almost shocked Nanyan and made her unable to maintain her calmness. What does second brother mean? What did he do? Or was he forced by Nolan to do something? Or was he apologizing to Nolan for doing so many bad things with his body? Nanyan wanted to lie to herself. But reality did not allow her to lie to herself. The second senior brother is probably no longer the second senior brother he was before. Wenhung didn't know Nanyan was awake. He stared at her face infatuatedly, and caressed her cheek with his fingertips. Little junior sister, please sleep well. When you wake up, no one can separate us again. Nolan looked at Wenhung's actions in the sea of consciousness and sneered, Wenhung, you don't even dare to kiss her. The woman in his arms now is the woman he has loved for more than 10 years. With the warm and fragrant nephrite in his arms, he remained calm in the face of danger. He actually did nothing but touch his face and hug her. What an idiot. Wenhung's arm holding Nanyan suddenly tightened, and he angrily talked to Nolan in the conscious world. What nonsense are you talking about? Nolan, am I talking nonsense? Do you dare to say that you don't like Nanyan and don't want her? Wenhung, I like her, and I won't force her. Before she accepts me, if I act randomly, she will be unhappy. And he didn't want to make her unhappy or disgust her. Nolan rolled his eyes speechlessly. Then according to your thinking, you will never get her in this life. He is different. No matter if she wants it or not, she must first become her own woman. but now it seems that he can't be impatient yet. If you want to change Wenheng's thinking and make him think the same as him, it's not too late to take action. Anyway, there will be plenty of time in the future, so there is no need to rush. Wenheng didn't care about Nolan's words. He didn't believe that Nan Yan had no feelings for her. She loves him so much and cares about him, so she will definitely be moved by him and accept him. Wenheng and he now have a subsidiary relationship. He can feel what Wenheng is thinking. He can only feel what he wants Wenheng to feel unless he wants him to feel it. He can feel what he doesn't want him to feel. Can't feel. Regarding Wenheng's thoughts at this time, Nolan curled his lips with ridicule. What a naive idea. Nan Yan had secretly promised Qin Lufang for a long time. The two were in love, and he wanted to wait for her to fall in love with him. What are you dreaming about? But Nolan is too lazy to pour cold water on Wenheng now. After he suffers a few defeats from Nan Yan and recognizes the reality, he will unite with him and get Nan Yan in the simplest and most direct way. Nan Yan only felt Wenheng's embrace of her getting stronger and stronger. As for the conversation between the two of them in their heads, she had no way of knowing. Wenheng said a few words and then didn't speak again. The information she wanted was not revealed at all. Nan Yan endured her irritation, slowed down her breathing as much as possible, and maintained a sleeping state without any awareness of the outside world, so as to avoid arousing Nolan's suspicion. The car is driving fast. No one spoke in the carriage, it was so quiet that you could hear your heartbeat and breathing clearly. Suddenly, Nan Yan heard the sound of propellers. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 482. Suddenly, Nan Yan heard the sound of propellers. An idea came to her mind instantly. Could it be Nolan was going to take her away from Y City? If so, then the plan she and Qin Lu had before had to be changed. Nan Yan definitely couldn't let herself be taken on the plane by Nolan. If he took her on the plane, the situation would be out of control. She couldn't wait any longer. At that moment, Nan Yan didn't care about pretending to be asleep to get information. She suddenly opened her eyes and suddenly attacked. She turned over and knelt on the seat, her fingers as sharp as hooks, grabbing Wenheng's throat. Second brother, let him stop the car. Wenheng was startled. Little sister, you are not asleep. Nan Yan actually lied to him. Then, Nolan directly replaced him, forcibly took back control, and returned to his body. His eyes were stained with sinister, and the corners of his mouth raised a feminine sneer. As expected, we can't underestimate the cleverness of junior sister. It seems that you are playing tricks on me and deliberately delivering yourself to me so that I can catch you. Nan Yan keenly felt from his tone that the soul that controlled the body of the second senior brother had changed. She was even more rude at the moment. She didn't have the heart to hurt the second senior brother, but she didn't have the heart to hurt Nolan. The strength in her hands increased, and Nolan's larynx was squeezed by Nan Yan's hands and made a crackling sound. I said, stop the car. Nolan's eyes were full of madness, and his oppressed trachea made a hoarse sound. Impossible. Junior sister, the car can't stop, or you kill me. If the car stops now, not only will Nan Yan not be able to take it away, but he will also be left here. Nan Yan saw that he looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water, bit the root, and directly raised his hand to chop his neck. Nolan. He didn't expect that Nan Yan would subdue him in this way. The eyes went black for a while, and the next second, he fainted. Nan Yan let him go, turned around and stretched out her hand to strangle the driver's neck, and ordered coldly, stop. The driver was a death soldier trained by Nolan, completely under his control, and only accepted his orders. He would not pay attention to other people's orders. Even though his life was in Nan Yan's hands, he had no intention of stepping on the brakes to stop the car. He even sped up, wanting to drive the car to the destination as soon as possible. Seeing that he was not afraid of death, Nan Yan simply leaned over and grabbed the steering wheel directly. "Let go, it's going to crash." The sudden left and right shaking of the vehicle made the death soldier panic. After all, there were not only the two of them in the car, but also his master. Once a car accident happened, no one would be spared. The loyalty of the death soldier made him consider the safety of his master instead of his own safety at the first time. So, while scolding Nan Yan, the driver stepped on the brakes to slow down the car. How could Nan Yan do as he wished, forcefully grabbed the steering wheel, turned the direction sharply, and turned towards the big tree on the side of the road. The assassin was frightened by Nan Yan's crazy behavior and stepped on the steering wheel desperately. Before the car was about to hit the tree, it finally stopped. Nan Yan knocked the driver unconscious and turned around to get out of the car. Unexpectedly, Nolan, who had fainted, woke up at this time. He attacked Nan Yan directly. Nan Yan was surprised for a moment, but did not show any courtesy to him and fought back fiercely. The two of them fought back and forth in the narrow compartment. The space was too small, and neither Nan Yan nor Nolan could exert their original strength. Because it was too tight, at least half of the force was suppressed. Nan Yan was hit twice by Nolan. Nolan was also hit several times by Nan Yan. Both of them were injured. However, Nolan was a man, and his physical strength was naturally stronger than Nan Yan. This was a huge difference in physique. Nan Yan knew that she could not fight a protracted war with him, otherwise she would suffer. At that moment, Nan Yan changed her moves directly, using the method of hurting the enemy by 1000 and hurting herself by 800, and fought with him to a draw. Puff. Nolan spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at her in disbelief. "Do you really want to kill me?" Not only he couldn't accept it. Even Wen Hung, who was watching them fight in the sea of consciousness, couldn't accept it. This was his body. If Nolan died, he would die with him. The little apprentice sister was really merciless and killed him. Although he also hurt her, he just wanted to control her and make her lose her ability to move, and didn't really want to hurt her. In response to him, Nan Yan was merciless and hit him hard again. Of course, Nan Yan was also seriously injured at this time, with blood hanging from the corners of her mouth, but her cold eyes without any emotion deeply pierced Nolan and Wen Hung's eyes. How could the little apprentice sister do this to me? Wen Hung couldn't accept it. He refused to believe that Nan Yan had just wanted to kill him. "Quiet your love-mindedness for a while," Nolan scolded him coldly. "She hasn't really thought about killing us yet, she just wants to keep us at all costs." Nolan's mood was not that bad. Only because of Nan Yan's behavior, he admired her a little more. She was cruel and decisive. She was worthy of being the woman he liked. Only such a woman was worthy of staying by his side. Nolan temporarily lost the ability to move. Although he had strong recovery ability, he had just suffered a serious injury and his body was too weak. He could only lean on the back of the chair in embarrassment, looking at Nan Yan gloomily while vomiting blood. Because the space in the carriage was too small, Nan Yan almost sat on his lap, leaning down and looking at him with condescending indifference. Indifferent and ruthless, he seemed to be considering whether to patch him up and make him completely incapacitated. After all, this person is too evil. The blow she used to knock him out would have knocked him unconscious for at least half a day on an ordinary person, but he only woke up after being unconscious for 5 or 6 minutes. His physique is a bit scary. She guessed that Nolan probably used genetic modification on this body. As for whether it is true or not, it will be clear after taking him back and checking it. Ahem. Nolan probably saw the hesitation in Nan Yan's eyes, so he held his chest with difficulty and coughed up a few more mouthfuls of blood. He raised his injured eyes and shouted hoarsely, "Little junior sister, do you really want my life? But, I have never thought of hurting you in the slightest." The look in Nan Yan's eyes flickered, and the hesitation in her heart was temporarily suppressed. Although he didn't patch him up anymore, in order to prevent him from being able to resist again, Nan Yan took out the silver needle indifferently under Nolan's accusing gaze, sealed several important acupuncture points on him, and made him incapacitated. Nolan. That's not very nice. He has always been the one controlling others and making them incapacitated. Now it's his turn, he's not happy, okay. However, no matter how unhappy he was, there was nothing he could do in such a state. He was really seriously injured and wouldn't be able to fully repair it for a while. Nan Yan waited until the last injection was done, then relieved her strength, held the back of the chair, opened the door and got out of the car. Leaning against the car, she rubbed the area where Nolan had hit her, then frowned and called Qin Lu. After Qin Lu answered the phone, she took a deep breath, tried her best to make her voice sound normal, and said quietly, "Brother, come pick me up." She had promised Qin Lu before that she would not let herself get hurt. However, she broke her promise. Fortunately, her injuries were not obvious. If Qin Lu didn't tell him, he wouldn't be able to tell, right? "Qin Lu, I'm behind you." Nan Yan turned her head stiffly, and sure enough, less than 10 meters away from her, she saw Mr. Qin, who had just gotten off the car. Qin Lu hung up the phone and strode towards her. He has been following Nan Yan. Nan Yan was taken away by Nolan. How could he feel relieved? Especially when he was in the car and saw that the car carrying Nan Yan was driving at a high speed and suddenly swayed greatly from side to side and could crash at any time. His heart almost jumped out of his chest. Qin Lu had long legs and arrived in front of Nan Yan in just a few steps. "Are you injured?" Nan Yan felt guilty and did not look into his eyes. She licked her lips and shook her head, "No." Qin Lu looked at her through the street lamp. She was not injured on the surface, but because of the previous fight, her clothes were a little messy, and there were also areas on her clothes that were accidentally torn during the fight. "What happened to the car before?" Nan Yan endured the pain radiating from her body and said calmly, "Oh, the driver was disobedient and refused to stop. He had to do something before he was forced to stop." Qin Lu stared at her silently for a long time, and finally reached out to rub her long hair. "Has the person been controlled?" Nan Yan changed the subject. "Let's take the second senior brother back first, and we'll talk about the rest after we get back." Hashtag. Qin Lu opened the car door and saw Nolan's miserable condition. He vomited blood himself, and there were blood stains everywhere on his clothes and the car seat. He leaned weakly on the back of the chair and gasped for air. There are also several longest and thickest silver needles stuck in the body. Qin Lu turned around and glanced at Nan Yan lightly. Nan Yan was carefully rubbing her sore spot, but when she saw Qin Lu's gaze directed at her, she stood up immediately and pretended to be nonchalant. Seeing Qin Lu still looking at her, he blinked innocently and asked, "What's wrong?" Qin Lu secretly grinned at his teeth. When he turned around, 3 words came, "It's nothing." Little liar. Lying to him again. But now is not the time to press her. Let's wait until we get back. Nolan was transferred to Qin Lu's car and thrown in the back of the carriage. Nan Yan consciously got into the passenger seat and buckled her seat belt obediently. "Just when I was buckling my seat belt, I accidentally touched the place where Nolan hit me, and I took a breath of pain." Qin Lu's eyes glanced over instantly. "What's wrong?" Nan Yan's body froze. She couldn't let him know that she was injured. "It's nothing. I just accidentally pressed my hand when I was buckling my seat belt." After saying this, Nan Yan pretended to be calm and handed her slightly red hand to Qin Lu. Of course, the red on her hand was not held securely. It was because she hit Nolan too hard that it hurt her own hand. Qin Lu lowered his eyes, looked at the red back of her white hands, and lowered his head to kiss the red hand. Nan Yan. She just wanted to find a reason to prevent him from discovering her abnormality. I didn't expect that boss Jean could be so good at it. It's so tempting, how can she hold it back? After Qin Lu kissed Nan Yan's hand, he was about to look up when Nan Yan hugged his neck. Then he felt a coolness on his lips, and her breath instantly surrounded him. The little guy took the initiative to ask for a kiss, so how could Qin Lu show weakness? Nolan, who was sitting in the back row, suddenly looked gloomy. Wen Hong saw the scene in his mind, and his mood was also depressed. Before he faced up to his feelings for his junior sister, he could still accept the relationship between Nan Yan and Qin Lu. But now he has evil thoughts about Nan Yan, and wants to get her at all costs. Seeing Nan Yan and Qin Lu being so intimate in front of him, how could he accept it? Sensing Wen Hong's intense emotional fluctuations, Nolan deliberately provoked him. Do you still want to wait for the little junior sister to change her mind? I'm afraid that no matter how good you are to her, you can't replace Qin Lu's position in her heart. The little junior sister's character is not so fickle. If you want her to fall in love with someone else, I guess you have to wait until the sea dries up and the rocks crumble. Wen Hong gritted his teeth. No. I changed my mind. Nolan was afraid that the world would not be in chaos. Oh? What idea? Do you want to force it? Wen Hong. After a few seconds of silence, Wen Hong denied in a muffled voice, no. Nolan raised his eyebrows. What is that? Wen Hong snorted, I want to brainwash the little junior sister. As long as she forgets Qin Lu, he will have a chance to get her. Robbing is the method he least wants to use. He doesn't want Nan Yan to hate him. He doesn't want to see the disgust and dislike for him in her eyes. So, if Qin Lu has completely occupied her heart, then empty her heart and let him move in. This time it was Nolan's turn to remain silent. After a few seconds, he clapped his hands. Great idea, I support you. Nolan was really happy. Under his influence, Wen Hong had become more and more perverted. This is a good sign. Wen Hong snorted gloomily, as a response to him. Nan Yan was asking for trouble now. She was aroused by the tenderness of Qin De Lao, and kissed him uncontrollably. As a result, Qin Lu now turned defense into offense, holding her and kissing her, and accidentally twisted her painful part. On one side was tenderness and sweetness, and on the other side was heart-wrenching. She was jumping back and forth between hell and heaven, in pain and happiness. However, the injured part was twisted all the time, and the pain continued to intensify. She was almost unable to bear it. Fortunately, Qin Lu regained his reason and suddenly remembered that there was a spectator in the back of the car. He suppressed the desire that was about to get out of control and let Nan Yan go. Nan Yan almost couldn't help but groan in pain. After being forced to twist her waist for a long time, the pain suddenly doubled. Fortunately, the hot kiss just now had stained her cheeks with a layer of rouge, so her face did not change too obviously. But her subtle micro-expression was seen by Qin Lu. His eyes fell on the place where she subconsciously covered her face, and Qin Lu's eyes darkened again. Looking back at Nolan with a gloomy expression, Qin Lu frowned and was a little annoyed. He actually forgot to raise the baffle, allowing Nolan to see the scene. What a mistake. The next second, Qin Lu raised the baffle expressionlessly, blocking Nolan's sight behind him. Nan Yan took a few seconds to finally suppress the pain, turned her head, and said naturally, "Brother, let's go back to the hotel first." Yeah. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 483. The car was parked in the underground parking lot of the Landis Hotel. This is not the hotel they stayed in before. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Qin Lu and Nan Yan discussed and brought Nolan here. Through the elevator, from the underground parking lot directly to the exclusive presidential suite on the top floor. As soon as she entered the room, Nan Yan excused herself to go to the bathroom and temporarily left Qin Lu's sight. After locking the door, Nan Yan lifted her clothes and saw the distinct purple color on her abdomen, which made her a little worried. She was strangled by the seat belt in the car before, and her injuries worsened. Now even if she didn't touch it, the dense pain was constantly eroding her nerves. The important thing is that she doesn't have any medicine to reduce swelling and stasis, and this injury won't heal so quickly. If Qin Lu finds out. Nan Yan covered her face with her hands, feeling a little hopeless. After simply treating the injury and pricking the acupoints with silver needles to relieve the pain, she came out of the bathroom. As soon as she came out, she saw Qin De Lao sitting on the sofa, looking at her with dark eyes like the abyss. Yan Yan, come here. Nan Yan felt a little cold on her back. Afraid that he would notice something unusual, she pretended to be calm and walked towards him. What's wrong? Brother. As for Nolan, he was thrown to the ground as soon as he came in. The serious injury made him faint. This time, he was really fainted and would not wake up in a short time. Nan Yan stood in front of Qin Lu, and before she could prepare, Qin Lu suddenly reached out to touch her abdomen. Nan Yan subconsciously wanted to step back and avoid. Don't move. A low voice sounded in her ears. She paused in her evasive action, watching him reach out to open her clothes, and finally could only purse her lips helplessly, her mind quickly turning, thinking about how to coax this big guy. Her skin was originally white, a cold white skin with ice and snow. Usually, bumps would leave obvious marks, and it would take a long time to disappear without medicine. The bruise as big as a bowl was particularly dazzling. The cold fingertips touched gently, and Qin Lu asked in a low voice, "Does it hurt?" Nan Yan pretended to be calm, shook her head and said, "No." The next second, Qin Lu's fingertips pressed down. The piercing pain made Nan Yan almost want to kick him. Asshole. This dog man is really a dog. He actually pressed on her wound. Qin Lu, Nan Yan took a step back and distanced herself from him, a little annoyed. However, as soon as she pushed away, an arm wrapped around her waist and pulled her back again. Qin Lu lowered his head and approached. Nan Yan was already a little frightened. Brother Qin's state was a little wrong. Did her injury stimulate his nerves? Nan Yan didn't dare to hide again this time, and stood stiffly in place to see what he wanted to do. He was kissing her injured place. The annoyance in Nan Yan's heart was completely disappeared by his doing this. What followed was guilt. She promised him that she would not let herself get hurt. In the end, she broke her promise and kept it secret from him. It is understandable that he is angry and distressed now, so he has such an action. After kissing her wound gently, Qin Lu gently stroked her wound again, frowned and asked distressedly, "Does it hurt?" This time Nan Yan learned her lesson and nodded, "It hurts. It really hurts." Qin Lu pressed it, but he didn't use much force. It's just because the injury is serious, even if he just pressed it lightly, it will hurt. Qin Lu's face was serious. "If you know it hurts, will you dare to mess around next time?" Nan Yan. To be honest, she doesn't care about this kind of minor injury at all. But she thinks that if she says this, Qin will be even more angry. Since he is angry now, he shook his head obediently, "I dare not." "Brother, don't be angry, I'm not in front of you, and I also caught Nolan back. As long as the goal is achieved, it's enough." Qin Lu looked at her coldly and walked out. Nan Yan. What's going on? Nan Yan sighed, sat on the sofa, and waited for him to come back. About half an hour later, Qin Lu came back from outside. He was holding a bag in his hand. Seeing the pharmacy logo on it, Nan Yan pursed her lips. He went to buy medicine for her. In fact, there was no need to buy medicine for her. Tomorrow, she would go to the hospital to make some medicine herself, which would be much more effective than the medicine bought in the pharmacy outside. Qin Lu put the bag on the coffee table, took out the ointment from it and opened it. Lift up your clothes, I will help you apply the medicine. Oh. Nan Yan cooperated and lifted up her clothes to reveal the injured area. Qin Lu squeezed the ointment in his hand on the fingertips first, and then gently applied it to her injured area. The ointment was a little cold, and it contained menthol ingredients, which could relieve pain. After massaging until it was absorbed, Qin Lu rubbed his palms to warm them up, and used the temperature of his palms to warm her up, so that the medicine could work better. Nan Yan leaned on the back of the sofa, looking at the man who condescended to squat in front of her with a dazed look. Finished. More and more excited. Finally, Qin Lu applied the medicine to her, put down her clothes and stood up, saying, "Okay, don't work hard recently, take good care of your injuries." "Brother, I'm a doctor." Nan Yan reminded him seriously. Qin Lu tapped her forehead with his medicinal scented finger and said lightly, "Doctors don't treat themselves." "Okay. He is the boss, and what he said is the imperial decree. Rest here today, and go directly to the hospital tomorrow." "Yes." Hashtag. Early the next morning, Nan Yan washed up and came out of the second bedroom, and saw Nyolan still lying on the ground. The living room floor was covered with a thick blanket, so no one helped him move yesterday. Nyolan had woken up. It was just because of the silver needles on his body that he could only maintain the same posture. After a night, he almost couldn't feel the existence of his body. "It really hurts everywhere." Nolan saw her come out and said pitifully, "Little junior sister, can you remove the needle first?" The blood on his clothes had dried up, and the blood on his face had not been cleaned up. He looked very embarrassed, and with such a pitiful expression, he had a sense of fragility that made me feel pity. Nolan felt that given Nan Yan's care for Wen Hung, no matter what, seeing him like this, she should be soft-hearted. However, Nan Yan walked past him expressionlessly, without even giving him an extra glance. Nolan snorted coldly in the conscious world, "Wen Hung, your junior sister doesn't feel sorry for you at all. Wen Hung. Can you stop provoking him?" After a second of silence, Wen Hung fought back, "Because you are in control of the body now, it's strange that she feels sorry for you." "Heh." Nolan sneered, "Why don't we try it? You take control of the body, will the junior sister pay attention to you?" Wen Hung, "Okay, then give me the control." Nolan handed over the control of the body to Wen Hung very neatly, and ran to the conscious world to get out of the pain. Wen Hung, who had just returned to his body, was immediately groaned in pain by the surging pain. Wen Hung gritted his teeth, his face pale, and angrily roared at Wen Hung in the conscious world, "Damn, Nolan, you are too insidious. Whoever controls the body has the five senses and perceptions." Nolan's injuries were already very serious. Even though his body had been genetically modified, the injury was real and he could not block the pain. Afterwards, he was controlled by Nan Yan with silver needles and had to maintain the same posture for a whole night. In addition, he was thrown to the ground by Qin Lu casually, and the posture somewhat compressed the injured part. Now the pain in his body was like a wave, one wave after another, and it was superimposed, and it was getting more and more painful. After Nolan woke up, he had already endured the pain for half an hour. On the surface, he did not change his expression. In fact, if he could move, he would have jumped up in pain. But Wen Hung was provoked by him and asked for the right to control his body back. Now he was the one who suffered. Nolan pretended to be innocent, "You didn't want to go back." Wen Hung gritted his teeth again, "Get out." While the two of them were communicating in the conscious world, Nan Yan had already sat at the dining table, eating the delicious breakfast made by the chef of the Atlantis Hotel. Qin Lu poured her a cup of hot milk and brought it over to sit next to her. Does the injury still hurt? Much better. Nan Yan tried to ignore the pain in her waist and abdomen, leaned back in the chair, and took the milk he handed over. Let's go to the hospital later, I'll prescribe some special medicine, this kind of minor injury will heal in 2 or 3 days. Yeah. Qin Lu knew her ability, and after all, it was not a serious injury, so he was not too worried. Just as the two of them were eating breakfast leisurely, Wenheng and Nolan finished talking, and Wenheng groaned in pain, "Little junior sister, it hurts. Nolan, that shameless guy, couldn't bear the pain and pushed me out, can you bear to watch second senior brother die of pain?" Nan Yan's expression changed, and finally put down the milk in her hand, stood up, and walked towards him. "Second senior brother, I can take out the silver needle, and I can also help you treat your injuries, but you have to eat this." Nan Yan took out a medicine bottle from her pocket and poured out a pill from the bottle. "I won't force you. If you agree, I'll help you relieve the pain. If you don't agree, then you can exchange with Nolan and let him continue to control your body." Wenheng's face, wearing a mask of pain, was stunned. He stared at Nan Yan for a few seconds, and then his eyes fell on the brown pill in her palm. He asked softly, "Junior sister, what medicine is this?" "It's a medicine that prevents you from running away." Nolan said depressedly. "In the conscious world, junior sister has learned bad things." Wenheng hesitated for a few seconds and nodded, "Okay, I'll eat it." Nolan hurriedly stopped him, "Hey, who told you to eat it? Do you want to be controlled by Nan Yan?" Wenheng, "Then why don't you bear this pain?" Nolan, "Then eat it." In fact, he is now in Nan Yan's hands, and it doesn't matter if there is one more layer of control. Besides, he is proficient in poisons. At worst, after eating it, he will find a way to detoxify it. The most important thing is to relieve the pain now. After getting Wenheng's answer, Nan Yan fed the pill into his mouth. Then, all the silver needles that were inserted into his body yesterday were removed. Nolan's body, which had been stiff all night, finally relaxed. However, because he had been stiff for too long, the sudden relaxation doubled the pain in his body, and the feeling was even more painful. This wave almost killed Wenheng. Nolan saw Wenheng's miserable condition in the conscious world, and was very glad that he had foresight and temporarily gave Wenheng the control. Otherwise, he would have to bear all this now. Wenheng lay on the ground, in pain for a long time without coming back to his senses, his whole body subconsciously tensed to resist this severe pain. Nan Yan got up and went back to the second bedroom to take out the needle bag, put away the thickest and longest needles, took out the thin silver needles, turned Wenheng over, let him lie flat on the carpet, and gave him acupuncture again. "Little junior sister, thank you." The severe pain was relieved, and Wenheng felt like he was alive. Nan Yan lowered her eyes. Thinking of the abnormality that Wenheng showed after he took control of his body in the car, a layer of sadness covered her eyes. She reached out and pressed on Wenheng's wrist to feel his pulse. After taking the pulse, she took her hand back, looked down at Wenheng lying on the carpet, and whispered, "Your injury, wait for me to come back from the hospital to bring you medicine, second senior brother, don't let me down." Wenheng felt a sour feeling in his heart. Did the little junior sister know something? Is she disappointed with him now? It should be. Even he himself felt that he was so disgusting now. If the junior sister knew that he had so many dirty thoughts about her, I'm afraid she would completely break up with him. Wenheng's mind was a little volatile. How could Nolan make Wenheng, who was finally assimilated by him, return to normal? In the conscious world, he bewitched, she just doesn't know your love for her now, and regards us as enemies, so she said this. But she is the same as us. Now she is in the wrong camp. We have to pull her over and let her correct her mistakes in time. Wenheng, wait for me to brainwash the junior sister. There will only be you in her world. She will rely on you wholeheartedly and like you. She will not be disappointed in you no matter who she is disappointed in. Wenhung's dim eyes gradually brightened with Nolan's words. Wenhung, in the future, you will have a complete junior sister. Although the current experience will be a little painful, you must know that the future you want is waving to you. Don't hesitate, this is the most correct choice for us. Wenhung was brainwashed by Nolan in this way. The future he promised him was too tempting to him. Let him be willing to become his kind. Wenhung gritted his teeth and said coldly, Nolan, I believe you, but you'd better not let me down. Nolan smiled, don't worry, we will definitely win in the end. Nanyan didn't know the communication between Nolan and Wenhung in the conscious world. After taking his pulse, she returned to the dining table and continued to eat. Qin Lu didn't ask anything, waiting for her to say it herself. Hashtag. After dinner, Nanyan received a call from Zhong Jingkai. Zhong Jingkai got up early in the morning to find Nanyan, only to find that she was not in the room. This is not because he thought something happened to her and contacted her quickly. When Nanyan answered, he hurriedly asked, Yan Yan, where are you? Why aren't you in the room? Nanyan apologized, Dinzone, I had something to deal with yesterday. It was too late and I didn't go back to the hotel. I found a hotel nearby to rest. Later, we will meet at the hospital. Oh, so that's the case. Zhong Jingkai was relieved to hear that she was fine. Okay, we will meet at the hospital. Yeah. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 484. After having breakfast, locking Nolan in the hotel and sending someone to guard him, Nanyan and Qin Lu went to the hospital. Zhong Jingkai and other professors are already here. Dean Zhong, what's wrong with this student of yours? She's late for various reasons every day, and she has so many of us waiting for her. That's right. Why is she a student who is busier than us? She can't even see anyone every day. Dean of the clan, you have to take good care of her and don't let her waste her talents because of her arrogance at such a young age. The professors had objections to Nanyan being special every time and not acting together with the large army. After all, Nanyan is just a student. In their opinion, the reason why she came to Y City with her this time was for Zhong Jingkai's sake, and she came with him to gain knowledge and gain experience. No one thought that Zhong Jingkai took her with him to help her solve the trouble. Zhong Jingkai said calmly and indifferently, I'm sorry, everyone, Yanyan really has something to do when she comes here, how about we go in first? Zhong Jingkai couldn't tell them that it was Nanyan who had the ability to research the antidote, and the formula he got was given by Nanyan. This can only make them misunderstand Nanyan and think that she is just here to join in the fun. Well, go in first. When your student comes back, let her come to us. Several professors were tired of waiting, and when they heard what Zhong Jingkai said, they all agreed. The group entered the hospital and went directly to the laboratory. Dean Zhong, how did you develop the antidote to this virus? Can you tell us about it? As soon as they entered the laboratory, everyone's attention was attracted by the antidote formula that Zhong Jingkai brought out. As for Nanyan, they have forgotten it. After Zhong Jingkai got the antidote formula yesterday, Nanyan had already told him the principle, so when the professors asked, Zhong Jingkai talked to them calmly. Nanyan and Qin Lu arrived 10 minutes late. I didn't see them outside the hospital, and I didn't call to inquire. I went directly to the laboratory to find someone. Miss Nanyan, do you know Tao Qingming? Before arriving at the laboratory, Nanyan and Qin Lu were stopped by Dean Liao. Yes, I know you. Dean Liao has something to do with me. Nanyan vaguely felt that Dean Liao wanted her to save people. Sure enough, the next second, Liao Jiaming looked a little excited. Miss Nan, I have something to trouble you here. I wonder if Miss Nan has time. Can. Nanyan had no objection. When people came to her for help, she would help. As for Qin Lu, he will go wherever Nan Yan goes. No matter where he goes, he just needs to stay with her. The two of them followed Dean Liao. Then came the intensive care unit. On the hospital bed was a woman in a coma. Her actual age is only in her 50s, but judging from her appearance, she looks like an old man in her 60s or 70s. Without checking her pulse, Nan Yan could tell from her face that she was seriously ill and would not die soon. Ms. Nan, this is a patient of mine. The condition is very serious. If we can't save her, I'm afraid she won't last a week. Liao Jiaming frowned with a sad expression. She is the widow of a hero. Her husband and 2 sons all died for the country. She donated all the money the country paid to support her to the orphanage, and she also adopted more than 20 children. My child gave everything she had, now she is suffering from illness. I hope you can save her. Nan Yan nodded, then walked up to the hospital bed and put his hand on the old man's wrist. After a few minutes, she let go of the patient's hand. No wonder the doctors at the hospital couldn't save her. This disease can only be treated with genetic medicine. If her genes cannot be repaired, she will become terminally ill. Tao Qingming and Liao Jiaming knew each other and had a good relationship. Just before Nan Yan came to Y City this time, he contacted Tao Qingming. After Tao Qingming learned from Liao Jiaming that Nan Yan and the others had arrived, he told him about Nan Yan's ability. Liao Jiaming originally didn't believe how good a little girl like Nan Yan could be in medical skills, and blamed Tao Qingming for joking. Later, I found out that old Professor Yun Ziun was cured by Nan Yan, and I was almost shocked to the point of questioning my life. Later, he learned that Nan Yan was still the apprentice of divine Dr. Hua, and he realized why she had such advanced medical skills. It was only today that I decided to seek help from Nan Yan. As a result, I didn't see her in the morning. I asked Zhong Jingkai and found out that she had something to do and had to be late. He had been guarding the door, fearing that Nan Yan was coming and he didn't know. When Liao Jiaming saw that Nan Yan had checked her pulse, he quickly asked, "Miss Nan, can Mrs. Jin be saved?" The old man's name is Sujin, and Liao Jiaming is a few years younger than her, so she always calls her Mrs. Jin. Yes, Nan Yan gave Liao Jiaming an affirmative answer. Really, Liao Jiaming was full of surprise. That's great. I need a lot of medicine. I will make a list later. Dean, please prepare all the medicine as soon as possible so that I can give her the medicine as soon as possible. Liao Jiaming said hurriedly, "Okay, I will prepare the medicine as soon as possible." Nan Yan turned to Qin Lu and said, "Brother, please help me go back to the master to ask for some medicinal plants. I saw them in the second master's small medicine garden last time. They should be mature. If they are not mature, ask the master to help me. It's okay to choose a few herbs with similar medicinal effects." Qin Lu was about to agree when he heard Nan Yan change his mind again. "Forget it, I'll ask third brother to send it here directly to save you another trip back and forth." Qin Lu. "Yes, just do whatever the little girl says, he just listens." Qin Lu asked lovingly, "What else do I need to do?" Nan Yan tilted her head slightly, "You don't need to do anything, just be a vase to please me. No vase is as good looking as him. It's pleasing to look at, and he tempts her from time to time, making her want to commit a crime." Qin Lu laughed and pinched her cheek as if to punish her. Dean Liao was forced to eat a mouthful of dog food. Looking at the sweet and sticky behavior between the young couple, he looked away a little embarrassedly and pretended not to see it. Nan Yan called Fu Yubai and asked him to bring the medicine. Then he asked Liao Jiaming for paper and pen to write down the medicine she needed. Liao Jiaming took the list she wrote and immediately asked someone to find the medicine. Nan Yan accidentally touched the injured area and frowned inadvertently, which was seen by Qin Lu. "Yan Yan, go and prepare some medicine to apply to your wound first." Nan Yan nodded obediently, "Okay." Zhong Jingkai and several professors in the laboratory were busy preparing the antidote. However, the formula was available, but the preparation process encountered a lot of trouble. Mr. Zhong, why do we always fail at this step? We have tried so many times, but we have never succeeded. Is there something wrong? The professors are all leaders in their fields and experienced people, but they can only be regarded as newcomers to the research of this kind of genetic medicine. So this time it is completely Zhong Jingkai who is the main person, he will take the lead, and they will be the assistants. Zhong Jingkai's expression is very calm. Research is like this, slight differences will affect the final result. Even if there is a formula, it will not be successful in 1 or 2 times. From determining the formula to researching the real antidote, it will take at least a week or even longer. It needs to be slowly prepared. The number of failures now is nothing compared to the number of failures I have made in my previous research on other medicines. Mr. Zhong is right. Then continue, be more cautious, learn from the reasons for each failure, and research the antidote as soon as possible to relieve the pain of those patients. Yes, let's continue. As soon as Nan Yan arrived, she heard the conversation in the laboratory. She waited until it was quiet inside before she went in. Dean Zhong. Zhong Jingkai's expression became gentle after seeing Nan Yan. Yan Yan, come here. Look at this step, how to do it? Master Zhong, we can't figure out the steps, what can you ask a student? Let's find a way to solve it. Master Zhong, we understand that you want students to have more experience, but your student is late and leaves early. Even if you have high talent, it won't work if you don't have a sense of time and don't care about anything. If you ask me, you have to manage it well. The professors were very dissatisfied with Nan Yan's attitude. In front of her, they began to tell Zhong Jingkai that she was wrong. Zhong Jingkai frowned slightly. He wanted to clarify for Nan Yan, but Nan Yan waved her hand to him, indicating that it didn't matter. She didn't care about other people's opinions. Besides, these professors had already left a stereotyped impression of her. Zhong Jingkai speaking for her would only make them more dissatisfied with her. Zhong Jingkai had to temporarily hold back what he was going to say because of Nan Yan's behavior. He was not happy that they misunderstood Nan Yan, so he explained calmly, Yan Yan did have something to do, which delayed her time. She performed well in school, and was well received by teachers in high school, and won many honors for the school. He paused and said, no matter which school she is in, she is a good student that teachers like. Several professors heard the defense of Nan Yan in Zhong Jingkai's words, and his displeasure at them talking about Nan Yan, and they shut their mouths one by one, and said nothing more. Nan Yan ignored the others, glanced at the antidote being prepared on the laboratory table, and said to Zhong Jingkai, Dean, I will go to prepare some medicine first and come back later. Zhong Jingkai nodded, go. After taking the things she needed, Nan Yan found a clean laboratory table and began to prepare the medicine slowly. The professor not far from her was curious and kept peeking at her. He thought Nan Yan was practicing and doing experiments for fun. As a result, he found that Nan Yan's movements were more skilled than he thought. It was easy for Nan Yan to prepare the wound medicine, just as simple as eating and drinking water. The whole process took less than 5 minutes. Professor, how can it be so frivolous? Even if you practice by yourself, you shouldn't do it so casually. Just when the professor wanted to teach Nan Yan a lesson, Nan Yan lifted the hem of her clothes, revealing that the blood stasis under the skin on her abdomen had spread because of a night's rest. The area was larger and the color was darker, which looked more serious. Nan Yan thought to herself, fortunately, Qin Ye didn't see her current appearance, otherwise he would be distressed again. Hurry up and apply the ointment to let the blood stasis spread as soon as possible. She dug out the ointment and was about to apply it on the wound. The professor who had been watching her couldn't help but say, wait a minute. Nan Yan turned around and found that someone had been watching her. She calmly put down the hem of her clothes. "Professor, is there something? You want to use the ointment in your hand on yourself?" "Yes, what's wrong?" Nan Yan was a little confused. "How did you get the injury? It looks serious. You can't apply medicine carelessly, otherwise it will affect the injury." "Well, I know." The professor frowned and said, "I know you're still messing around. Wait a minute, I'll help you get some medicine." As he said that, he came up and snatched the ointment she had just prepared and threw it into the trash can. Nan Yan. A speechless incident. Should she say thank you to him? Didn't he dislike her? Why did he come here to meddle in other people's business? The professor didn't care how speechless Nan Yan's expression was, and re-prepared a can of medicine for bruises and injuries for her. "Use these, and you will get better in a week at most." Nan Yan took the medicine can that was forced into her hand, pursed her lips, and said lightly, "Thank you." She had to go through the trouble again and say thank you to the other party, which was so frustrating. "Apply it quickly, little girl. How did you get yourself so badly hurt? Did you bump into something or fall?" Nan Yan put away the ointment made by the professor, and selected some from the materials, and said nonchalantly, "I got it from fighting with someone." "Fighting?" Nan Yan raised her eyebrows. "Well, I'm a fierce fighter." The professor didn't like Nan Yan to begin with, and now when he heard that she went out to fight, his face suddenly changed again. He wanted to preach, but then he remembered Zhong Jingkai's unhappiness before, and finally shook his head and left. Nan Yan looked around and saw that no one was paying attention to her anymore, so she processed the ointment given to her by the professor for the second time, added several drugs she had taken out before, and remixed it. No one came to disturb her this time. After applying the ointment to the injured area, the burning pain soon gradually subsided. After putting away the ointment, she went to find Zhong Jingkai. There were several professors around Zhong Jingkai, and they were studying the formula together. Seeing Nan Yan coming, Zhong Jingkai made way and said in a friendly manner, "Yan Yan, you try it?" "Okay." Nan Yan calmly walked to the position that Zhong Jingkai made way for and continued according to his progress. For the sake of Zhong Jingkai, the professors couldn't tell Nan Yan not to make trouble. They also heard that Nan Yan was talented in this, so they didn't leave and just watched them. Half an hour later, Nan Yan researched the antidote. "Professors, how is it possible?" They, a group of professors and a dean of the biochemistry department, didn't research it, but she, a student, did. "I can't help but doubt whether this antidote is useful." Zhong Jingkai believed in Nan Yan's strength 100%, and said directly, "Give it to Dean Liao first, and find a patient to see the effect." "Wait a minute, this medicine doesn't need to be tested, it's used directly on the patient. What if something goes wrong? This virus infection is serious. If you are not careful, it will threaten the patient's life. We can't take the patient's safety as a joke." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 485. Who will take responsibility if something goes wrong? The professors did not trust the antidote that Nan Yan had researched. And as long as the antidote was used on patients, if something went wrong, the outside world and the patient's family would definitely not blame a student, and they would be the ones to take the blame. Besides, even if the antidote was effective, it would have to be tested before it could be used on people. How could it be used on people without even testing? "I'll take responsibility." Zhong Jingkai spoke in a deep voice, and the professors who were still opposing stopped talking and looked at him. "If something goes wrong, I will take full responsibility and take all the responsibility on myself." Nan Yan did not say that she would take responsibility. After all, in the eyes of these people, she was just a student, and her words were not taken seriously. How could she have such a big face to say that she would take responsibility herself? But Zhong Jingkai did. His words were weighty, and he could make people trust him when he said them. "Mr. Zhong, what are you doing?" The professor who had just strongly opposed frowned and looked at him, expressing his incomprehension of his behavior. He praised his students, and they all understood. But now is a time when human lives are at stake, and the overall situation should be the most important. "My student, I believe in her ability, you don't need to say anything more. I dare to guarantee for her, if there is a problem, it will not implicate you. I will take full responsibility." Hearing Zhong Jingkai say this, the others did not dare to persuade him anymore. At that moment, Nan Yan took the antidote. "Go to give it to the patient." When they arrived in the ward, someone advised again, or, pick a few patients with more serious symptoms and try the medicine first. Although they knew that talking too much would make Zhong Jingkai unhappy, no one wanted anything to happen, both publicly and privately. It is best to keep the probability of accidents as low as possible. After the antidote is injected into the body, it will take at least 3 days for the patient to show significant improvement. The situation will not be too obvious in the first 3 days. Waiting for 3 days will delay the condition of other patients, and patients whose symptoms were not too serious will be dragged into serious condition, which will increase the difficulty of treatment. Nan Yan said calmly in the face of several pairs of oppressive gazes, "I mean, inject all of them. Since you are so sure, then inject them. I hope your antidote is really useful. Don't let Mr. Zhong bear the blame for you." Zhong Jingkai. Do these professors have problems with their understanding? He said that he would take it on his own and he believed in Nan Yan's ability. Why are they still self-righteously putting pressure on her? Forget it. It's better to wait 3 days and let these patients tell them the results with facts. Nan Yan and Zhong Jingkai injected the antidote to all patients infected with the virus. After all the injections were completed, Liao Jiaming contacted her again. The medicines on her list had been found and he wanted her to go over and see how to use them for Sujin. Nan Yan contacted Fu Youbai. Fu Youbai had just gotten off the plane and went to the hospital immediately. After making sure that all the herbs were found, Nan Yan said to Zhong Jingkai, "Dean Zhong, Dean Liao has something to ask me, I'll go there first." Although Zhong Jingkai was curious about the reason why Liao Jiaming wanted to find her, he nodded and said, "Okay, then you go over, I'll take care of this." He had no objection, but the professors all disliked Nan Yan again. Seeing Nan Yan leave, their already bad impression of her fell to the bottom. "She's leaving again. Mr. Zhong, what are you busy with every day as a student? Why are you in a hurry every day?" Zhong Jingkai explained for her, "She's not leaving, but Dean Liao needs her help with something, so she's going to Dean Liao first." "What can Dean Liao ask her for?" "They are a group of professors who don't need to be here, but they just want to find a student." "I'm not sure about this. If you want to know, go ask Dean Liao." Zhong Jingkai's tone was not very polite. He didn't understand why Nan Yan kept picking on her when she didn't offend them. What on earth do they dislike about her? It's simply insane and unreasonable. After being criticized by him, the professors calmed down and began to check and record the patient's physical data, and check them every once in a while to see if there are any changes in their bodies. Hashtag. After Nan Yan left the ward, she did not go to Liao Jiaming first, but went to pick up Fu Youbai with Qin Lu who was waiting outside. Fu Youbai was exhausted, holding a big bag in his hand, which contained the medicinal materials that Nan Yan wanted. Seeing Nan Yan and Qin Lu coming to pick him up, he walked quickly to them. "Junior sister, the medicine you want." Nan Yan took the herbs from him and asked, "Do you have all the herbs I want?" "Yes, they are all there. Master asked me to bring you some more. If you need them, use them." Nan Yan nodded, "Thank you, third senior brother." Fu Youbai smiled warmly, Why be polite to third senior brother? I'll help you. Qin Lu now barely accepted the good relationship between Nan Yan and her fellow apprentices. He was less jealous and could calmly face these scenes that made him paranoid and possessive. Let's go find Dean Liao first. Dean Liao had been waiting anxiously. Seeing Nan Yan coming over, he hurriedly asked, Miss Nan, are all the medicines for saving Sister Jin ready? Yes, I'll prescribe the first course of medicine for her first course to stabilize her vital signs. Then I'll trouble Miss Nan. Dean Liao, you're welcome. I'll borrow the hospital's laboratory for a while. She had given Sujin acupuncture before, and her condition had stabilized a lot. If she couldn't take the medicine in time, she could last another half a month. Liao Jiaming immediately took Nan Yan to the Y City Hospital, the laboratory with the highest preparation, so that she could use it without worry. Miss Nan, if you need any help, just tell me, I will do my best to satisfy you. Okay, I'll tell you when I need it. Brother, you don't have to wait here, you can have the help of the third brother, you can go back and look after Nolan. To be honest, she was not very reassured to leave Nolan alone in the hotel. Even though Nolan was half disabled now and was specially guarded by Mr. Qin, she was still worried that he would escape. After all, she had already experienced Nolan's insidiousness and cunningness. Qin Lu nodded, okay, then I'll go back and help you look after him. Hashtag. With Fu Yubai's help, Nan Yan saved a lot of trouble. The medicine that would have taken at least 6 or 7 hours to develop only took 4 hours. Afterwards, Nan Yan did not forget to prepare some medicine for Nolan. Nolan's internal injuries were very serious. If this kind of injury was placed on an ordinary person, it would be a fatal injury. Even if he was left alone and allowed to worsen, he would not live for a few days. However, Nolan's body was obviously not that of an ordinary person. It was a genetically enhanced body, and his body healed much faster than that of an ordinary person. Moreover, his physical strength was also different from that of an ordinary person, and his ability to withstand stress was also higher than that of an ordinary person. Nan Yan was worried that after his body recovered, he would be restless and want to escape, so she added some drugs that made him weak to his medicine. Junior sister, can the second senior brother come back? Fu Yubai had deep feelings for Wenheng. He did not want Wenheng to be controlled by Nolan all the time, and he did not want Nolan to use his body to do evil and bear so many charges. Hearing his question, Nan Yan was silent for a moment, looking at Fu Yubai with a level gaze. Third senior brother, you have to be mentally prepared. Perhaps, we can't wait for the original second senior brother to come back. Fu Yubai's gentle expression froze. Little junior sister, what do you mean by this? Could it be that second senior brother can no longer take back his body, and that body will always be occupied by Nolan, the alien life form? Then is he still their second senior brother? He has changed. Nan Yan's tone was a little gloomy. He and Nolan should have some kind of deal, and he began to have a bond with him. Nan Yan's sixth sense is very strong. Even if Wenheng only said a few words when he was controlling the body, it was enough for her to feel his change. He was no longer the second senior brother who cared for her and treated her and everyone well, and was both mean and cute. Instead, he was corrupted by Nolan and no longer pure. Fu Yubai's expression froze. He pursed his lips, and asked unwillingly, if we can drive Nolan out of his body, will he have a chance to recover? He and Wenheng had a deep relationship, and he couldn't give up if there was a 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 chance. I'm not sure, I can only know after trying. Nan Yan didn't want to lie to him just to make him feel better. As the person closest to the second senior brother, he had the right to know the truth, and he should tell the truth, whether it was good or bad. But I will do whatever it takes to get the second senior brother back to his body. Well, little sister, I'll leave it to you. Nan Yan looked at him. That's also my second senior brother. Well. Hashtag. 3 days later, all the patients who were injected with the antidote showed signs of improvement. The professors who had doubted Nan Yan's ability were speechless after seeing this scene. After all, the antidote is really useful and can really make the patients better. What else can they say? However, they also feel that the prescription was given by Zhong Jingkai, and she just prepared the medicine, so it was Zhong Jingkai who really saved people, not Nan Yan. Nan Yan didn't care about the professor's disapproval at all. She and Zhong Jingkai prepared the second generation of antidote so that the patients could get better faster. In addition, she had to take care of Sujin, so she had no time to listen to how they evaluated her. She didn't care, but Zhong Jingkai always wanted to speak up for her. Every time he heard the professors talk about Nan Yan in a picky tone, he couldn't help but confront them. Later, the professors knew how much Zhong Jingkai valued the student and how important Nan Yan was in his heart. After she didn't show up late or leave early again, they couldn't find any faults, so they all shut up and didn't dare to mention Nan Yan in front of Zhong Jingkai. However, in private, they began to isolate the teacher and student, thinking that they were too arrogant, couldn't stand criticism, and didn't listen to others' advice. Dean Zhong, what's going on between you and those professors? Dean Liao heard some private rumors and asked about it while having dinner with Zhong Jingkai. It's okay, don't worry about it, let them say whatever they want. Zhong Jingkai had never worked with these professors before, and didn't know that the current academic circle had become so chaotic and the atmosphere was simply unbearable to watch. Since he couldn't change this atmosphere, he chose to ignore it. As long as he had the ability, he would protect Nan Yan from the intrusion of these problems in the circle. Dean Liao expressed his understanding. Indeed, Miss Nan's character should not be affected by these people, and with her strength, who has the right to blame her? He saw the changes in Sujin in the past 3 days. A person who was thought to be hopeless and whose life was almost at the end of his life was given a new life in her hands. She was worthy of the title of Little Miracle Doctor. He is worthy of being the apprentice of Divine Dr. Hua. What Liao Jiaming is most fortunate about now is that he did not doubt Tao Qingming's words because Nan Yan looked too young. If it weren't for Nan Yan's presence, Sujin would probably not be able to hold on for another 3 days at most, and his life would come to an end. Dean Zhong, fortunately you brought Miss Nan here this time, otherwise Mrs. Jin's life would not have been saved. Dean Liao sounded a little excited. How do you think I should thank her for this? In addition to reporting her contribution to her superiors, should I award her a banner or something? You can ask her yourself about this. But I don't think Yanyan will let you do this. Zhong Jingkai sighed. The treatment of those patients this time was all due to Yanyan. From the prescription to the preparation of the antidote, it was all her work alone. I was just assisting. But without hesitation, she put all the credit on me and refused to let me tell outsiders. Although she has high abilities, she is very low-key. Now that she is still young, it will be better for her future development to temper her edge. Liao Jiaming also just learned this and couldn't help but sigh. Miss Nan's future is immeasurable. Well, she has the strength. Dean Zhong, Dean Liao, what are you talking about? The two of them were chatting when Nan Yan came over. Zhong Jingkai smiled and said, I'm talking about you. Huh? Nan Yan raised her eyebrows slightly. What do I have to talk about? Zhong Jingkai smiled and suddenly asked, Yan Yan, how about I be your assistant from now on? Nan Yan. Dean Liao was also stunned when he heard this. Nan Yan said helplessly, Dean Zhong, are you kidding me? No, I am asking for your opinion very seriously. Zhong Jingkai pointed at himself and said, look at my serious face, my serious expression, could it be a joke? As your teacher, I really have nothing to teach you. On the contrary, there is a lot worth learning from you. If it is not inappropriate, I would like to switch identities with you. Nan Yan. Dean Liao, how much wine did you drink for the dean? Liao Jiaming, well, We didn't drink at all. After a pause, he asked expectantly, if you don't mind, can you accept one more student from me? Nan Yan, you continue chatting as if I haven't been here. After saying that, she turned around and ran away. The conversation with them is a bit dangerous and cannot be continued. Although she knew it was a joke, she always felt that if possible, these two people were serious. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 486. Nanyan came out of the hospital and received a call from Fuyubai. What's wrong, third senior brother? Fuyubai, Yanyan, when will you return to the imperial capital? It will take at least 3 or 4 days. Third brother, are you in a hurry to go back? She had to wait until Sujin's condition stabilized before adjusting her medication for the second phase. Sujin is now out of danger, but if he is not careful, his condition will worsen and become life-threatening. Now that she has taken over this patient, she must be responsible for her safety. Fuyubai said gently, don't worry, Master will contact me and ask when we will go back. Then I'll call Master back later. Good. After hanging up Fuyubai's phone, Nanyan dialed Hua Shifang's number. However, the phone kept ringing until it automatically hung up, and no one answered. Then she found Sun Chan's phone number and called him. As a result, no one answered. No one answered the two masters' calls at the same time, which made Nanyan think a little too much and worry about what they were doing. Nanyan flipped through the phone book, found the number of Sun Chan's disciple Gu Chen, and dialed him. This time someone finally answered. Senior Sister Nan. When Gu Chen received a call from Nanyan for the first time, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. Although Gu Chen worshipped Sun Chan earlier than she did. However, Nanyan's master was Hua Shifang and she became a disciple of Hua Shifang earlier than Gu Chen. Therefore, Gu Chen always called Nanyan senior sister. Gu Chen, where are Master and the others? Master and Uncle Hua went to the Divine Doctor Gate. Gu Chen paused for a moment. Senior Sister Nan, if you want to find Master, they can call the Divine Doctor Gate. Otherwise, you can wait a moment while I go to the Divine Doctor Gate to find Master and the others. Gu Chen's reaction was not that slow. Since Nan called him to ask about Uncle Hua and his master, he must have called them and failed to get through. However, the master and uncle were gone for only about half an hour. How could they lose contact in just half an hour? Nanyan frowned slightly. I'll contact the Divine Doctor sect first. If the Divine Doctor sect doesn't have Master or the others, you can go find them. Okay, Senior Sister Nan. Nanyan dialed the phone for the 4th time. Over at the Divine Doctor Gate, Hua Shifang and Sun Chan were not seen. According to the time they left, half an hour later, they would have already arrived. Now there is no one at the Miracle Doctor's door, and the phone cannot be dialed. Nanyan was originally worried, but now he is even more worried. Gu Chen, there is no Master or the others at the Miracle Doctor section. Now go to the Baiko Garden and have a look. I'll go now. After contacting Gu Chen, Nanyan still didn't put down the phone and dialed Qin Lu again. Qin Lu returned to the imperial capital yesterday because Mrs. Qin had something to do, so he could help look for her. Nanyan, brother, my master and second master have lost contact. Please help me find out their whereabouts. Qin Lu, well, don't worry. Mr. Hua and Mr. Sun are not ordinary people. They will be fine. I will contact you after I find them. Nanyan, okay. It was a big deal that Hua Shifang and Sun Chan lost contact. When Qin Lu knew about it, he didn't delay at all. He told Mrs. Qin and took Wu Yu to find someone. Over at Baiko Garden, I was told that there were 2 people who didn't come. Gu Chen immediately became anxious. He could not have imagined that in the imperial capital, someone would dare to touch his master and uncle. Who is so bold? Besides, with the abilities of master and uncle, how could they be taken away quietly? Who is the other party? Qin Lu first adjusted monitoring. During the surveillance, after the 2 people came out of the courtyard, they rode shared bicycles towards the Divine Doctor Gate. Halfway there was a distance without surveillance, and during that stretch, the 2 of them disappeared. No matter Qin Lu checked all the surveillance cameras around him, he couldn't find them again. When Qin Lu personally went to the place where Hua Shifang and Sun Chan disappeared, he only saw 2 shared bicycles placed next to green plants. It was neatly placed. I don't know if it was placed by the previous owner or by someone else after they left. Nan Yan learned from Qin Lu that Hua Shifang and Sun Chan were indeed missing, and their whereabouts had not been found for the time being, so how could they stay in Y City? But as for Sujian, she couldn't just let it go and ignore it. She went to the hospital again, prepared half a month's worth of medicine for her in advance and gave it to Liao Jiaming. Then she told Zhong Jingkai that she would leave early. Zhong Jingkai nodded. Patients infected with the virus are gradually recovering. We can provide follow-up treatment. If you have anything, please go back early. My own students are very busy people. And every time it was an important matter, he couldn't delay her business. Returning to the Landis Hotel from the hospital, Fu Yubai was a little confused when he saw her coming back at this time. Little junior sister, why did you come back so early today? Nan Yan's expression was slightly condensed. Master and second master are missing. We are going back to the imperial capital now. Fu Yubai's expression suddenly changed. What's going on? They were talking to me on the phone not long ago. I don't know exactly what happened, and Qin Lu has no clues. Let's look for them together when we get back. Fu Yubai, I'll arrange the flight and go back immediately. Nan Yan glanced at Nolan, who was sitting leisurely on the sofa, as comfortable as lying on the bed. Without saying anything, he went to pack the things he wanted to take away. Nolan's lips curled up, but there was no worry or gloating expression on his face, which was enough to give them face. It took him a few days to recover from his internal injuries, and his body was genetically modified, making him far stronger and faster than ordinary people. In order to confuse Nan Yan and prevent her from discovering the secret of his body, he could blatantly pretend to be weak to make Nan Yan feel soft, so he deliberately made himself look weak. Of course, it was useless no matter how much he pretended to be weak. Nan Yan had no time to pay attention to him recently. The private jet arrived within half an hour. Nan Yan and Fu Yubai took Nolan on the plane. Little junior sister, we don't have to be like this between senior brothers and sisters, right? Nolan looked at Nan Yan standing in front of him holding a silver needle, with an innocent and flattering expression. Nan Yan's face was expressionless. Who is your senior brother and sister? Please ask my second senior brother to come out and tell me about your senior brother and sister again. There are not many suspects in the disappearance of the masters. The great elder and the others were not forced into desperation. Although they no longer had a miraculous medical school, with the wealth and connections they had accumulated over the years, they would have enough food and clothing for the rest of their lives. Unless they wanted to die, they would not kidnap Master and the others in this way. Moreover, she didn't think they had such ability. Hua Shifang and Sun Chan had no other enemies, so it didn't look like they were seeking revenge. In comparison, she felt that Nolan was the most suspicious. Others are being controlled, but he still has so many subordinates. Perhaps, there are other ways of contact between them. Nolan's soft face pretended to be sad and said, "Little junior sister, you make me sad when you say this. We obviously get along more during this period, and we are very happy. Do you have no feelings for me at all?" Nan Yan raised her eyebrows. Does it count to want to kill your feelings? Nolan shook his head helplessly. Junior sister is becoming more and more humorous. He tilted his head, looking uninterested, and discussed with her. How about this? Don't stab me, and I promise to be obedient, not run away, or make trouble, okay? Nan Yan looked at him. He looked at her without avoiding it, with a very sincere smile on his face. Seeing the stalemate between the two of them, Fu Yubai went over and said, Yan Yan, I'm watching the second senior brother and won't let him have the opportunity to do bad things. You can put the silver needle away. Nolan immediately said with regret, their junior brother still cares about me and has deep feelings for me. Shut up, Fu Yubai said coldly. What I care about is my second senior brother. What does it have to do with you? Oh, their junior brother, why are you so careful in distinguishing them? I have the memories of your second senior brother. We are already one person. You can treat me as your second senior brother. Nolan deliberately got close to Fu Yubai. As a result, Fu Yubai just gave him an indifferent side face and was too lazy to pay attention to him. With Fu Yubai guarding Nolan, Nan Yan thought for a while and put the silver needle away. He planned to return to the imperial capital, and if he could not find out where the master and the others were, he would have to ask whether he was the one who did it. Hashtag. The plane landed on the tarmac near the courtyard. Qin Lu and Gu Chen were both here to pick him up. Nan Yan got off the plane first and asked Qin Lu about the specific situation. After being delayed for several hours on the road from Y City to the imperial capital, Qin Lu investigated a few more clues than before. When Gu Chen saw Nan Yan, he hesitated to speak. Nan Yan saw this and asked, Gu Chen, what's wrong? When Gu Chen was asked, he hesitated for a moment and then asked uneasily, Senior sister Nan, do you think something will happen to Master and the others? He was really worried. In his mind, Sun Quan and Hua Shifang were both legendary figures, and words like kidnapping, disappearance, and distress were not even close to each other. However, these two people who lived in the legends of outsiders disappeared in the imperial capital, in front of the audience in the hall. Nan Yan stretched out her hand and patted him on the shoulder, and said comfortingly, don't think so wildly, Master and the others have their own destiny, and nothing will happen to them. With her words, Gu Chen calmed down immediately. The originally pessimistic mood turned into optimism. Mr. Qin and senior sister Nan are both capable people. He believes that they will be able to get Master and the others back. Nolan stepped off the plane under the supervision of Fu Yubai. Seeing this posture, he couldn't help but guess, had something happened? He didn't know about the disappearance of Hua Shifang and Sun Quan. Knowing that Nan Yan suddenly had something urgent, he took him back to the imperial capital in a hurry. As for the reason, neither Nan Yan nor Fu Yubai revealed it in front of him, and it was indeed not him who hindered this matter, so he was really innocent this time. Fortunately, Nan Yan was not tortured to extract a confession before, otherwise he would have suffered in vain. But after realizing that something had happened, Nolan began to make insinuations, trying to get news from Fu Yubai. However, although Fu Yubai looks gentle and simple on the surface, how can he be a truly simple person if he can bring a declining family back to life and sit firmly behind the scenes to control everything? Fu Yubai could clearly see what he was thinking. Before Nan Yan asked him to reveal this matter to Nolan, no matter how Nolan tried, he would not say anything. After trying several times, nothing was found, and it made Fu Yubai a little unhappy. In order to make his life more comfortable, Nolan calmed down and stopped acting like a monster. We took a car from the helipad directly back to the Qin family's old house. There is a dungeon over there in the old house, and Nolan is temporarily locked up in it. Wait a minute. Nolan, who was locked up in the dungeon, called Nan Yan and the others with a stern face. You are locking me up here. Is this where people live? As a prisoner, Nolan has no self-awareness of being a prisoner. He is very dissatisfied with his current residence. Nan Yan asked back, then where do you want to live? Nolan glanced at the dark and humid environment in the dungeon with disdain. Even if it can't be the same as the place where I live in Y City, it must be at least half as comfortable, otherwise I can't get used to it. Nolan, I won't talk nonsense with you. I don't have time to take care of you now, but I'm worried about leaving you outside like this. The dungeon is the most strictly guarded place. It can ensure that you won't escape, and I can save a lot of worry. If you want to live outside, you can. I will inject you with drugs to make you lose your ability to move. Then inject me with drugs so that I can lie comfortably in bed every day. Nolan continued to put forward conditions, but you have to arrange someone to serve me. After all, I still have your second brother in my body. If you want to abuse me, I can only let your second brother come out to suffer. Nolan's tone was very arrogant. Nan Yan was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. Since it was his own choice, he was injected with drugs and someone took him to a hotel outside. The Qin family would not allow him to stay. Even though he had lost his ability to move, she was still worried about leaving him in the Qin family's old house, fearing that he would hurt Mrs. Qin and Qin Shiu. Nolan still lived in the Landis Hotel, and Qin Lu arranged for someone to look after him. After placing Nolan, the time bomb, Nan Yan and others began to go all out to investigate the disappearance of Hua Shifang and Sun Chan. Just when Qin Lu was about to use official forces to find them, a call came to Nan Yan's mobile phone. "Excuse me, are you Miss Nan Yan?" The person on the other end of the phone sounded very young, no more than 25 years old. The low and pleasant voice, the clear pronunciation, the ups and downs of the tone, like a male radio host, very pleasant to listen to. It is estimated that if the voice control heard it, it might fall for these few words. Of course, the men around Nan Yan are not only good looking, but also have their own charms in their voices. Without exception, they are all top voice actors. It's still a little short of making her fall. "Hello, I'm Nan Yan, who are you?" "Sheng Jing, my name, but Miss Nan doesn't know me." Sheng Jing smiled kindly. "I contacted Miss Nan to inform you on behalf of Mr. Hua and Mr. Sun that they are safe, so don't worry." Nan Yan's originally indifferent attitude suddenly became excited because of his words, "Where are my master and the others?" Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 487. Sheng Jing, my name, but Miss Nan doesn't know me, let's get to know each other now. Sheng Jing smiled warmly. "I contacted Miss Nan to inform you on behalf of Dr. Hua and Mr. Sun that they are safe, so don't worry." Nan Yan's expression froze. "Where are my master and the others?" "I'll send the address to your phone, Miss Nan, come here according to the location." "Okay." After Nan Yan finished talking to Sheng Jing on the phone, she turned around and said to Qin Lu, "Brother, drive, let's go find the master and the others." Gu Chen hurriedly asked, "Senior Sister Nan, have the master and the others been found?" "Yes." Nan Yan's nervous and worried mood was relieved a lot because Sheng Jing told her that Hua Shifang and Sun Chan were fine. Gu Chen let out a long sigh of relief. "Senior Sister Nan, can I go with you to find master and uncle?" "Of course, let's go, we'll go together." Fu Yubai also asked, "Junior sister, who is the other party?" "It's not clear yet. The person who called to inform my master of their whereabouts is called Sheng Jing." "Have you heard of him, third brother?" "Sheng." Fu Yubai's eyebrows twisted slightly. Could it be the Sheng family of the hidden family? The Fu family is also a hidden family. In addition to the Fu family, there are the Sheng family, the Zhang family, and the Shangguan family, which completely declined due to several family crises and disappeared in the long river of history. The Fu family avoided decline because of him. The Zhang family no longer blindly avoided the world since the Republic of China, and was in a semi-reclusive state. They changed their conservative ideas and are now developing well. But the Sheng family is an exception. Among the four hidden families, the Sheng family is definitely the strongest. At the beginning, they were forced to avoid the world one after another in order to continue the vitality of the family in the turbulent times due to their ancestral precepts. Only the Sheng family took the initiative to avoid the world. The Sheng family was already one of the most powerful families in China. It is said that the wealth of the Sheng family could buy half of China. As long as the person in power does not make mistakes, this kind of super family will never decline. Junior sister, if it is the Sheng family, it depends on whether they invite master and others to come over for something or for other purposes. No matter what the reason, be careful. Nan Yan nodded, I know. She was naturally wary of unfamiliar people. Everything will be discussed after they arrive. Qin Lu asked Wu Yu to drive his car over, and he planned to drive it himself. As a result, Wu Yu just got out of the car, and Nan Yan got into the driver's seat directly. Brother, third brother, Gu Chen, get in the car. Qin Lu smiled helplessly and shook his head. He forgot that Nan Yan was a racing enthusiast, and she was always keen on driving. Especially, when there was an emergency, she preferred to come in person. So, Qin Lu calmly sat in the co-pilot seat in Wu Yu's suppressed laughter and Gu Chen's surprised eyes. Fu Yubai also calmly entered the car. Gu Chen scratched his head, and only after Wu Yu's reminder did he quickly open the door of the car and prepare to get in the car. Wu Yu hurriedly called him, Hey, that little Gu, a friendly reminder to you, you must be mentally prepared when riding in Miss Nan's car, don't be scared. Gu Chen. Is it so scary for Miss Nan to drive? He didn't ask, but Wu Yu gave him a look to take care of himself. He was a little scared. But he remembered that he didn't get carsick. Was he exaggerating? Soon Gu Chen knew that Wu Yu's reminder was not exaggerated at all. He held the seat belt in the car tightly, almost using up all his willpower to not scream out because of being too scared. Senior sister Nan's car is really not for people to sit in. But why was he almost scared to death, while others seemed to be fine? Mr. Qin was as still as a mountain, and even senior brother Fu sat steadily, his face didn't change. How did they do it? All the way at lightning speed, with Nan Yan's superb driving skills, they arrived at a quiet town that looked like a painting. After Fu Yubai got off the car, he looked far away at the town not far away, and couldn't help but sighed. Who would have thought that the legendary Sheng family would hide here? If I hadn't come here according to the address given by the Sheng family, I'm afraid I wouldn't know that this is the Sheng family's territory even if I came here for tourism. Indeed, this place is more like a tourist destination. Not only is the scenery and environment good, but even the people coming and going seem to be extremely leisurely, with a slow pace of life, without the tension and oppression of a big city. Is this all the territory of the Sheng family? Gu Chen was confused and didn't quite understand. Fu Yubai, I think so. With the wealth of the Sheng family, buying a small town is just an ordinary and common operation. The simple Gu Chen said after a long while, it's really rich. Nan Yan parked the car not far from the town, and took out her mobile phone with Qin Lu to check the place. When she started to check, she found that this town was not on the map. And there is no surveillance in the whole town. Fortunately, there is still the internet. Otherwise, Nan Yan would have doubted whether this town was isolated from the world. Gu Chen suddenly pointed at the man who was approaching them and said, Is that man here to pick us up? Nan Yan put away her mobile phone and looked up. It should be. When the man walked to a place 4 or 5 meters away from their car, 4 people in the car got out one after another. Excuse me, are you Miss Nan? The man walked directly to Nan Yan and asked. I am Nan Yan responded quietly. Are you the person sent by Mr. Sheng Jing to pick us up? That's right, please come with me as a few distinguished guests. The third young master is waiting for you at the Bishui garden. The man leads the way. As they walked, Nan Yan and others saw the situation of the town more clearly. From the outside, you would think that the town looks like a paradise. But when they came to the town, they discovered that the modern technology here was comparable to the first-tier cities in the country. Even more technological, with intelligence everywhere. The people here give people a laid-back impression of the landscape, but they use various intelligent machines and robots to do things. This contradictory picture makes people feel inexplicably torn. The person who brought Nan Yan and the others in felt a bit superior and arrogant, especially when they saw the look of wonder and shock on Gu Chen's face, which made his chin lift up. Outsiders, in their eyes, are a low-level existence. The invisible sense of superiority made him not take it seriously even if he was facing guests invited by the third young master. Although he was respectful in his words, his expression and attitude were not very respectful. Among the 4 people in Nan Yan's group, except for Gu Chen who had been following Sun Chen and was too simple to see such a face, the others had already seen the man's attitude clearly. It's just that they still need him to lead the way for the time being. The master and the others are still in their hands, so they should try to control their temper and not worry about it. Crossing a long street, the man stopped in front of a building full of ancient charm. "You distinguished guests, the third young master is waiting for you inside. I can only send you here, please go in on your own. This is Bishui Garden." The man stood calmly at the door. He didn't go up to push the door open, nor did he mean to leave. Instead, he kept looking at them. Gu Chen stretched out his hand to push the door open. Nan Yan stopped him. "Don't touch it, it's poisonous." "Gu Chen. Is there poison on the door?" Nan Yan responded lightly, then passed Gu Chen and pushed the door open. Gu Chen said anxiously, "Senior Sister Nan, since it's poisonous, why did you just push it?" Nan Yan glanced coldly at the man who was watching the show and sneered, "This little bit of poison is almost as good as playing house in my eyes. But you haven't touched it before, so just don't touch it randomly." With that said, Nan Yan took out a porcelain bottle from his pocket, poured out 3 pills, and gave them to Qin Lu and the other 3, "Although I'm here so you don't have to worry about poisoning, in order to save trouble, you'd better take 1 pill each to detoxify first." Dan. Nan Yan was a little angry in her heart. The other party's behavior was undoubtedly an attempt to intimidate her. The man named Sheng Jing was so nice on the phone, but when they arrived, he started resorting to tricks even before they met. Her impression of him had hit rock bottom. The man leading the way couldn't help but be surprised when he saw that Nan Yan could tell that there was poison on the door just by looking at it. He was not afraid of the poison and reached out to touch it directly. He thought for a moment and then stepped forward. "I'm sorry, I forgot that the third young master likes to play with these poisons. There is quite a lot of poison in it. I'd better send a few of them in." Nan Yan refused expressionlessly, "No, you are not qualified to enter. We can go in by ourselves." The man was a little angry at Nan Yan's recklessness, and said in an unhappy tone, "Since you insist, then please do what you want." After entering the gate, Fu Yubai said with a solemn face, "Junior sister, be careful. It seems that the situation is much more dangerous than we thought before. It seems that he took it too much for granted before. The Sheng family is indeed not an easy family to get along with." "I know." Nan Yan was very calm. "No matter what, let's meet master and the others first. Be afraid, it's easy to get in but hard to get out." She was ready to fight out. "The big deal is, let's see who is more ruthless. If it really concerns their personal safety, she doesn't mind letting the entire town be buried with them." Qin Lu held Nan Yan's hand and gave her a reassuring look. "Don't worry, even if there are iron walls here, no one can stop us from leaving." Because the courtyard was full of poisonous things, Nan Yan and the others couldn't walk quickly. "Walk along the road at the door and keep going inside. There are poisonous things everywhere along the way." Even the gardens were planted not with flowers, but with various strains of poison. Among the many types of strains, Nanyang also saw many highly toxic strains, and there were many more that she had only seen in records, but had become extinct in reality. Thinking of Sun Chan, the second master who owned the Baiko garden, Nanyang felt that the third young master of the Sheng family owned the Baiko garden. From this point alone, it can be seen that this third young master is a poisonous doctor. There are so many houses here. In which house is the third young master waiting for us? Gu Chen has been walking at the back because he is the weakest and is protected by 3 people. Nanyang took out his cell phone leisurely and said, "Just make a call and we'll find out." Right. Gu Chen was so nervous that he forgot all about it. Nanyang found the mobile phone number Sheng Jing used to call her and called back. Soon, the call was connected over there. "Mr. Sheng, we have arrived at Bishui Garden." "Where are you?" "You went to Bishui Garden." Sheng Jing's voice was slightly anxious. "Miss Nan, why did you go to Bishui Garden?" Nanyang frowned. "The people you sent to pick us up said you were waiting for us in Bishui Garden." "I'm waiting for you to contact me after you come over, but I haven't sent anyone to pick you up." Sheng Jing was silent for a moment, and asked in a solemn voice, "Have you entered Bishui Garden now, or are you at the gate of Bishui Garden?" Nanyang narrowed his eyes slightly and looked around, inside the Bishui Garden. "Sheng Jing, don't go any further and retreat toward the door. I'll go find you now." "Miss Nan, you are in a very dangerous situation now. Don't act rashly. There are poisons everywhere in Bishui Garden. A little carelessness can kill you. You must be careful." Nanyang asked quietly, "How far are you from Bishui Garden?" "About 15 minutes away." "You don't mind if I cause some damage to Bishui Garden in order to protect myself?" "It doesn't matter. The most important thing is to ensure your own safety first." After receiving his permission, Nanyang calmly responded, "I understand," and hung up the phone. Fu Yubai waited for her to hang up the phone before asking, "Junior sister, what's going on?" Nanyang put the phone back into his pocket and moved his wrist. "The man who picked us up at the gate of the town was not the one arranged by Sheng Jing. We were deceived. Be careful, something is approaching us." There was no need for Nanyang to remind Qin Lu and Fu Yubai that their hearing was different from ordinary people, and they had already heard the rustling sound made by some kind of reptiles crawling on the ground. The 3 of them adjusted their positions in a tacit understanding, keeping Gu Chen in the middle to deal with the danger they would face next. Within a minute, they saw countless colorful snakes. There are venomous snakes emerging from the ground, in the garden, and among the green plants along the paths. Gu Chen's face turned pale when he saw this scene. He gritted his teeth and whispered, "You don't have to worry about me, just leave." He knew that he was a burden and knew nothing but growing medicinal herbs. This place is already very dangerous, and if we have to protect him as a burden, they will be hurt. Fu Yubai pulled out a short blade from his waist and chuckled, "Why are you so nervous? It's just a few snakes, nothing to be afraid of." Nanyang slowly turned a silver metal bracelet on her wrist. With a soft sound, the bracelet popped open and turned into a weapon. "Third senior brother is right, don't be nervous, it's a small scene." Gu Chen looked at the overwhelming group of snakes. "Is this still a small scene? So what is the big scene?" "These snakes appear to be highly venomous at first glance, and one bite will probably end the game. How can the 2 of them kill so many snakes with a small dagger each?" Then, he saw Boss Qin casually taking out a gun. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 488. When Sheng Jing arrived at Bishui Garden and opened the door, he expected to see a few panicked faces. As a result, he was shocked by the scene he saw in front of him. Nanyang and his group were standing 30 meters away from the gate, looking as if nothing was wrong. But next to their feet, there was a thick layer of snake corpses. Either the body was broken into 2 pieces, or the body was hit 7 inches by the ray gun in Qin Lu's hand. Even the 2 giant pythons as thick as a bucket did not escape the punishment of death. The snake bodies more than 10 meters long still maintained the struggling and desperate posture before death. The group of venomous snakes that were kept in Bishui Garden and turned it into a forbidden area are now almost all in their hands. As the instigators, there was not even a trace of blood on their bodies. On the contrary, it looks quite relaxed and calm. After Shengjing was surprised, he breathed a sigh of relief. They're fine, which is the best outcome. He calmed down his shock and walked towards a few people. Ms. Nan, I'm sorry for frightening you. Shengjing humbly expressed his apology. He was the one who called to inform them to come over, and they were members of Divine Dr. Hua. If something really happened, he would feel guilty. I will give you an explanation for this matter. When Nan Yan opened the door, he quickly returned the weapon in his hand to its bracelet state and put it on his wrist. A pair of plain white hands were stained with a little snake blood. She raised her hand to brush her hair without hesitation, looked directly at him and said, Mr. Sheng, the matter is not urgent. We want to see my master and the others first. Only then did Shengjing see Nan Yan's appearance clearly. After a flash of surprise flashed across his eyes, his expression returned to warmth. A chuckle appeared on his lips, then come with me. Coming out of Bishui Garden, there are vehicles parked outside. A majestic and bloody horse. The 4 people from Nanyang. He was riding alone. What were they going to do? Walking on 2 legs? Shengjing noticed the embarrassment and asked, how did you get here? Nan Yan pointed in the direction outside the town. The car is parked outside. Then drive in. The roads here can be driven by cars. Although there are very few people driving here, it is not impossible. Being able to drive here is the best thing. Nan Yan and his group went back to drive outside the town. After they left, the gentleness on Shengjing's face faded and he looked towards the corner of Bishui Garden. Hidden there was Chen Si, the man who had led Nan Yan and the others and tricked them before, and he quickly put his head back. Come here. Shengjing's voice was not loud, but it could not be refused. Chen Si couldn't help but regret in his heart, why didn't he run away quickly when he saw the 3rd young master coming, and insisted on watching here. Now the dish is finished. He didn't dare to run away, so he could only hold back his fear and bravely walk to Shengjing. 3rd young master Chen Si lowered his head, his voice trembling, are you looking for me? Shengjing raised his riding crop and whipped him 3 times. Every time the whip was struck, the skin and flesh were torn apart, and the 3 whips made his body covered in blood. However, Chen Si did not dare to hide. Even if the pain makes his whole body tremble and his vision turns black, he still has to grit his teeth and bear it. Go back and tell Shen Yuanhang that if you don't give me an explanation for this matter, then I don't mind going to him personally to ask for it. Chen Si lowered his head, enduring the pain. Yes, 3rd young master. Get out. Yes. Chen Si dragged his body, which was half beaten by Shengjing, and left quickly without any delay. Not 4 or 5 minutes after he left, Qin Lu drove back. This time, Qin Lu was driving and Nan Yan sat in the passenger seat. Qin Lu lowered the window and said in a low voice, lead the way. Shengjing got on his horse neatly and handsomely, whipped his riding whip, and drove the bloody horse ahead. It was probably because there were very few outsiders in the town, and everyone on the road was looking at them. But because of the grand scene, no matter how curious he was, he didn't dare to step forward. Shengjing is the 3rd young master of the family, with a high status. In the eyes of the people in the small town, he is like a master. No one dared to disturb him and his guests. The sweaty BMW stopped outside a manor with a quiet environment. Shengjing jumped off the horse, and after Qin Lu, Nan Yan, and the others got off the car, he said warmly, Divine Dr. Hua and Mr. Sun are here. Please come in with me. Junior sister, be careful. The previous plot by Chen Si made Fu Yubai no longer have a good impression of the Sheng family members. Even if the grand scene in front of him looks gentle and polite, and the aura on his body feels very decent, it can't be changed. He has a very bad impression of him. If it weren't for finding Master and the others, he wouldn't want Nan Yan to have too much contact with the Sheng family. It's best not to mess with this kind of ancient and powerful family that people can only look up to. I know. Nan Yan nodded slightly. Gu Chen also wanted to remind Nan Yan. But Fu Yubai got there first, so he silently shut his mouth. Anyway, 3 of the 4 of them are big bosses, and he is an ordinary person who just wants to try not to cause them any trouble. Fu Yubai did not deliberately lower his tone when talking to Nan Yan, but also deliberately let Sheng Jing hear it. Sheng Jing twitched the corner of his mouth helplessly. He originally wanted to leave a good impression on Nan Yan, but who knew that it was completely ruined by Sheng Yuanhang's men. I hope that after they see Dr. Hua and the 2 of them and figure out the situation, their hostility towards him can be reduced. Hashtag. In a room decorated in a simple yet noble style. Hua Shifang and Sun Chan were sitting at a square red sandalwood table, drinking tea with an old man who was a little weak but in good spirits. The purple clay teapot for making tea is also an antique. The ancestors of the Sheng family bought it at an auction for more than 10 million yuan 100 years ago. As of now, the valuation has exceeded 300 million. Antiques of this level, if placed in the hands of other collectors, would definitely be well kept in a vault. But in the Sheng family, it was directly used to drink tea. The tea brewed in the purple clay pot is also top-grade PUERT that costs tens of thousands of yuan per tael. Just from these daily life, we can see how wealthy the Sheng family is. Not long after Shen Mingtang woke up, he was too weak to drink tea, so he put ginseng tea in his tea bowl to nourish qi and blood. After he finished a drink, he looked at the 2 of them and said, "Mr. Hua, Mr. Sun, you saved my life. No matter what request you make, I will try my best to satisfy you. But I hope you can wait until I fully recover before leaving, may I?" Shen Mingtang was used to the attitude of high-ranking people. Even if Hua Shifang and Sun Chan saved his life, he wanted to reward them, but his tone seemed to be that they were lucky to save him. His hope was just that. In his opinion, Hua Shifang and Sun Chan would never refuse. If he puts it forward, they will rush to agree. Hua Shifang put down his teacup, frowned, and then said in a formulaic tone, "As a reward for saving you, I will charge you a corresponding medical fee. You are now out of danger. In the future, you only need to follow the dietary treatment prescriptions I left. If you take good care of yourself, your body will naturally get better. Junior brother and I both have important matters and cannot stay here." Hua Shifang was also speechless. Unexpectedly, he would be forced to see a doctor one day. At that time, he and Sun Chan were preparing to go to the Divine Doctor sect, but they were kidnapped halfway. The other party was very polite and forced them to come here to renew Shen Mingtang's life. Although the process of being brought was a bit frustrating, after arriving at the Sheng family's residence, Sheng Jing's attitude was very respectful and humble, hoping that they could save Shen Mingtang. In the spirit of rescuing people as soon as they came, Hua Shifang rescued Shen Mingtang, who had been in a coma for nearly a year. Later, he was treated as a guest of the Sheng family and accepted an apology from a group of people. Hua Shifang has long seen through these people's methods and is indifferent to this superficial pretense. It was only because he saw how unusual the Sheng family was that he suppressed his temper and did not get angry on the spot. Another point is that their mobile phones were taken away by the Sheng family immediately after they were brought here, and they have not yet returned them. The dignified and miraculous Dr. Menhua, the miraculous doctor, was treated like this. It would be strange for him to pretend that nothing happened. If he hadn't guessed that the place he was in now was the place where the Sheng family was hiding from the world, and the Sheng family was not something that the divine doctor sect could fight against. How could he have talked to Shen Mingtang calmly? Shen Mingtang didn't expect that he would actually be rejected, and he frowned in displeasure. Then he thought that he still had to rely on Hua Shifang to take care of his body, so he said kindly, "Miracle Dr. Hua, if you have anything, I can send someone to help. You don't have to deal with it yourself." Sun Chan put the teacup in his hand on the table with a heavy hand and said, "No outsider can help. Senior brother and I must go back to handle it." He is a rough man who is used to being straightforward, and he can't stand such hypocritical people. Of course, Sun Chan is not ignorant of the situation. It was obviously a situation where we were outnumbered, but he still knew how to restrain his temper and avoid conflicts. "Mr. Shen, if you are not worried about your health, you can find a doctor you trust to check you. Since my senior brother said that your body is fine, there will definitely be no problem. My senior brother can't help with the rest. What are you busy with? We do have an emergency and need to go back as soon as possible." Sun Chan's words were not an excuse to get away. They had something going on. The divine doctor sect needs Hua Shifang to take charge. The Baiko garden has recently been cultivating several long-extinct herbs, which cannot be managed without him. Although the two injured people in the courtyard were taken care of by Gu Chen and they didn't need to worry too much, they were the ones who were entrusted to them by Yan Yan, and they had to care for them occasionally. No matter which way you look at it, they can't waste too long in the Sheng family. Shen Mingtang was rejected again and again, but he was still rejected after his kind words and persuasion, and his expression was unbearable. But he had just woken up and his body was not suitable for anger. Especially the person he was facing was the person who saved his life. After suppressing his anger, he took another step back and said, "Since Divine Dr. Hua and Mr. Sun are both busy, it is inconvenient for me to force you to stay. In this way, you will stay here for another 3 days. During these 3 days, you can make any request. If my health continues to improve after 3 days and does not get worse again, how about I send you away?" This is his lowest bottom line. If they don't know how to praise, don't blame him for using force. After the two brothers Hua Shifang and Sun Chan looked at each other, Hua Shifang reluctantly nodded, "Okay." Shen Mingtang smiled weakly, "In the past 3 days, if you two have any needs, just ask, you're welcome." The three of them had just finished talking when there were footsteps outside the door. 3 pairs of eyes looked towards the door. Soon, Sheng Jing came in first. When Hua Shifang and Sun Chan saw Nan Yan and the other 4 following Sheng Jing, their expressions changed instantly. "Yan Yan. You buy." They guessed that if they were missing, Nan Yan and the others would definitely be alarmed. Afraid that they would worry, after rescuing Shen Mingtang, the first thing he asked after he was free was to contact Nan Yan. Later, due to some special reasons in the town, after knowing that they could not get their mobile phones to contact anyone for the time being, Sheng Jing volunteered to contact Nan Yan for them. That's how the previous incident happened. "Master, uncle/second master/uncle. Nan Yan, Fu Yubai and Gu Chen walked directly in front of Hua Shifang and Sun Chan. Qin Lu was like a shadow that could not be ignored, guarding Nan Yan at any time, and also greeted them. Sheng Jing went to see Shen Mingtang. "Grandpa, how do you feel?" Looking at his favorite grandson, Shen Mingtang's expression was more gentle, "Much better, except for being a little weak, there is no other discomfort." "Grandpa, you just woke up, it's not advisable to be too tired, I'll help you to rest first." Sheng Jing was providing Nan Yan and his disciples with a chance to be alone. Shen Mingtang just felt tired. "Well, then Xiao Jing, you come to accompany the guests, don't neglect them." Sheng Jing smiled warmly, "Grandpa, don't worry, I know what to do." Shen Mingtang was sent back to his bedroom by Sheng Jing. After the Sheng family left, Nan Yan asked, "Master, what's going on?" Hua Shifang reached out and touched her head. You also saw that the person in charge of the Sheng family was dying, and I don't know where he got the news that I appeared again, so I asked me to come and treat him. He didn't want Nan Yan to worry, and he didn't want Nan Yan to think that he and Sun Chan were bullied, so he went to avenge them. The Sheng family is different from ordinary families. It is so huge that unless the internal is completely rotten and the people in power are all mentally retarded for 10 consecutive years, it is possible for it to decline and squander all its wealth. Otherwise, it can continue to exist powerfully. But seeing Sheng Jing's appearance, it is obvious that this possibility is not true. It is an unwise choice to make enemies with such a powerful family. Therefore, Hua Shifang said it was easy to be kidnapped to the Sheng family and forced to save people. He didn't say it too clearly, just one sentence. Yan Yan, I made you worry. I'm glad you are okay. Nan Yan finally calmed down after seeing them and confirming that they were not in danger. But master, how did they bring you here at that time? She was very concerned that someone took Hua Shifang and Sun Chan away in public. Even if Sheng Jing hadn't called them, they would have searched for several hours and couldn't find their whereabouts. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 489. Just tell us directly, and we will follow. Hua Shifang said calmly, it was because the condition of the head of the Sheng family was critical, and there was no time to tell you, so your second master and I hurried over to save him. Nan Yan, is that so? Why did she feel that something was wrong? If the master and the others really followed voluntarily, how could they not even have time to call them? It only takes 1 or 2 minutes to make a phone call, and it won't waste time even if you make a call on the way. If he had sent a message, they wouldn't have been so worried and nervous. The master wouldn't be unaware of their whereabouts, and they would be worried if they suddenly lost their whereabouts. So, the situation is definitely not what the master said. Hua Shifang was justified and tried to cover up. Yes, now is a society ruled by law. You have to believe in the public security of our country. Nan Yan. Explanation is equal to covering up. When he said that, Nan Yan became more suspicious of the truth. But the master didn't want to say it, and she couldn't keep asking. Even if she asked, it would be a lie to her. Anyway, knowing that they are fine is the best result. Fu Yubai and Nan Yan looked at each other silently, and both of them had a rough idea in their minds. Hua Shifang and Sun Chan must have been forced to come here. They didn't say it probably because they felt it was a bit embarrassing to say it out, so they pretended not to know and gave them face. Except for the simple Gu Chen who couldn't hear the meaning, he thought the truth was just as Hua Shifang said. Gu Chen grinned and kept saying it's good that you are fine. Qin Lu, who had been standing behind Nan Yan, suddenly said, here, the mobile phone can't contact the outside world. He just wanted to check something and found out this situation. Not only can you not contact the outside world, you can't connect to the internet. Nan Yan subconsciously took out her mobile phone and tried it, and it was true. The signal in the house is blocked. When she was outside the house, she could still call Sheng Jing, but after entering the house, all the signals on the mobile phone became zero, and it was forbidden to communicate with the outside world. It's easy to crack it. However, forcibly cracking it may cause the displeasure of the Sheng family. It might cause trouble then. For the time being, she didn't want to break up with the Sheng family. At least, she had to wait until she understood the situation. Nan Yan put her phone back into her pocket, pursed her lips, and asked, Master, when can we leave? Hua Shifang said slowly, in 3 or 4 days, when the health of the head of the Sheng family stabilizes. Yan Yan, you have been busy all the time. The environment here is good. Just treat it as a vacation and relax for a few days. Then go back with us. Oh. Nan Yan analyzed from his words. Not only the master and the others can't leave, but now even they can't leave. At least, they have to stay here for 3 days. Since we are here, we should make the best of it. It's just right that we can take this opportunity to understand the situation of the Sheng family. Hashtag. Sheng Jing came back 10 minutes later. Sheng Jing smiled gently and politely, and said, "Grandpa just told me to arrange accommodation for you. If there is nothing else, let's go to see the room first." At that moment, Nan Yan and the others followed Sheng Jing to see their accommodation. Although Hua Shifang and the other two were kidnapped, Sheng Jing treated them as if they were distinguished guests. The accommodation they arranged was also in the best location. The antique courtyard had a plaque with the words Tingyu Pavilion. Not only was the scenery beautiful and the environment quiet, there was also a large pond in the yard, with a winding corridor and a fish feeding platform. There were many precious ornamental fish in the pond. Living here would not make people feel bored. Sheng Jing led them into the room, looked at the room again, and asked, "Dr. Hua, do you think this is okay?" "Yes." Nan Yan and the others had no requirements for where to live. "And this place is really good. It's okay to live here for a short period of time." After arranging the accommodation, Sheng Jing asked them to rest first and left consciously. "Third young master, send someone from the eldest young master to ask him to come over." Sheng Jing had just returned from Tingyu Pavilion when the servant came to report. The eldest young master was Shen Yuanhang. "He's really fast." He asked Chen Si to bring him a message, but he sent someone to invite him after such a short time. It seems that he was very worried that he would go to find him on his own initiative. The distinguished guest he invited was deliberately brought to Bishui Yuan, and he had to give him an explanation in person. Hashtag. Shen Yuanhang's residence. After Sheng Jing entered, the housekeeper immediately came to greet him. "Third young master, the eldest young master is waiting for you in the study." A hint of coldness flashed across Sheng Jing's eyes, and then he went to the study upstairs to find him. There are a total of 9 young masters in the Sheng family of their generation. But they have been in a state of competition since childhood. In order to get the position of the head of the family in the end, they are all competitors. The Sheng family seems powerful and glorious, but the Sheng family is also the most inhumane family. Even if they are related by blood and are blood relatives, there is no family affection between them. Some are just superficial harmony. In fact, there is only indifference and repression, without any human touch, which makes people want to escape. Sheng Jing sometimes even thought that it would be better if he was born in an ordinary family. In this way, he could also experience the family love and friendship that only existed in dreams and fantasies in his opinion. However, the reality made him have to try his best to adapt to such a Sheng family. Disguise yourself and don't let yourself have any weaknesses. Sheng Jing raised his hand, knocked on the door of the study, and then pushed the door open and went in. Shen Yuanhang was sitting behind the desk. When he heard the movement, he looked up. "Third brother, you are here." Shen Yuanhang wore gold-rimmed glasses, and his every move was elegant and graceful. The corners of his lips were drawn with a perfect smile, making people feel like spring breeze. But Sheng Jing didn't buy it. Walking straight to the desk, he pulled out a chair, sat opposite him, and asked casually, "Brother, what is your intention in sending Chen Si to lead my distinguished guests to Bishui Yuan? Did they offend you?" Shen Yuanhang frowned unhappily. "Sheng Jing, they are all outsiders. Are you going to blame me for them?" Sheng Jing reiterated, "They are my guests." "Brother, you must know, are you targeting them or me?" Shen Yuanhang pursed his thin lips, and his eyes under the glasses revealed a little sinister. He didn't expect that Sheng Jing would really tear up the superficial peace with him for a few insignificant people. The Sheng family is turbulent and undercurrents are surging, which is something everyone knows. But everyone only uses means in secret, trying to avoid making it clear and tearing faces. The Sheng family motto is to maintain the vitality of the family through competition, but it prohibits brothers from killing each other. So on the surface, even if they don't like each other behind the scenes, they have to maintain the illusion of brotherly friendship and respect. No matter what, as the eldest of their generation, he is their big brother. Sheng Jing can't be so disrespectful to him. Shen Yuanhang leaned back, and the powerful aura spread outward with him as the origin. Sheng Jing, you let outsiders enter the Sheng family privately, which is already a violation of the ancestral precepts. I solved the hidden disaster for you, and you don't thank me, but you still talk to me in such a tone. You are too presumptuous. Sheng Jing didn't care about his accusation at all, and said coldly, am I presumptuous, or are you? You know that those people are the apprentices of Hua Shenai, and now Hua Shenai has saved Grandpa, and Grandpa still relies on them to regulate his body. If you move them now, if Hua Shenai knows about it, he will do something in the process of treating Grandpa. If Grandpa gets into trouble at that time, can you bear such responsibility? Besides, it was Grandpa's suggestion to let them come to the Sheng family. Shen Mingtang was also worried that Hua Shifang would not be willing to treat him properly, so he led Nan Yan and others here, with the purpose of threatening him with Hua Shifang's apprentice. After all, they had forced Hua Shifang and Sun Chan to the Sheng family. In a sense, they had offended him. They had to be careful to offend a doctor, especially a miracle doctor. Shen Yuanhang's breath stagnated. Did Grandpa allow them to come in? What else? Sheng Jing raised his eyebrows meaningfully. It's not that easy to catch him. Shen Yuanhang's heart suddenly sank. He didn't know about this. If he knew the inside story, how could he do something to Nan Yan and the others? He just thought that Nan Yan and the others were brought in by Sheng Jing on his own initiative, and it just happened to be an opportunity to make trouble for Sheng Jing. As a result, he quickly turned his brain and thought about the opportunity to make amends. Just thinking about it, an idea suddenly popped up. Grandpa sent Sheng Jing to do this instead of looking for him. Could it be that Grandpa preferred Sheng Jing? This is absolutely not possible. He is the eldest grandson of the Sheng family and the most outstanding of their 9 brothers. The Sheng family must be inherited by him in the future. Otherwise, he will become a laughing stock. He also refused to accept other brothers to manage the family. When the Sheng family chooses the successor, they don't look at the age or generation, but the decision of the person in power. Shen Mingtang has 5 sons. Now all 5 sons are alive and in their prime, but when Shen Mingtang chooses the next head of the family, he directly chooses the grandson. That is Shen Yuanhang's generation. Because Shen Yuanhang's fathers, the youngest of them are now in their 40s or 50s, and have long been in charge of important positions in the family. Let them succeed the head of the family, then the power in the hands of the successor of the head of the family will be too great. To succeed the head of the family, you must be fair and just, not partial, not selfish, and stay neutral. In order to balance the power between the several rooms, let them check and balance each other, and to allow the next head of the family to stay in office longer, Shen Mingtang skipped them and cultivated the grandsons. 9 grandsons have the same inheritance rights. However, there are only 8 left now. The second young master of the Sheng family had an accident 7 years ago and is no longer there. Shen Yuanhang always felt that he had an absolute advantage and the position of the head of the family was in his pocket. But Shen Mingtang arranged Sheng Jing to contact Hua Shifang's apprentice instead of him, which made him feel a strong sense of crisis. Shen Yuanhang suppressed the sense of urgency and anger in his heart and said apologetically, I really didn't know about this before, 3rd brother, I'm sorry, I acted without knowing it. But I did this because I was worried about you, 3rd brother. I'm sorry, please forgive my recklessness. Shen Yuanhang tried to expose the matter in an understatement, and also put on a hat that was for Shen Jing's benefit. Shen Jing couldn't help but sneer. How could he not see what he was thinking? There is no brotherhood between them at all, they are just competitors. He cares about him, which is why there is a ghost. But now that he says this, even if he doesn't accept it, few people will stand on his side and think Shen Yuanhang is at fault. His excuse was so clever. But Shen Jing only felt sick. Brother, I apologize to the wrong person. I was not the one who was frightened and deceived. You should apologize to the people you hurt. Shen Jing was too lazy to talk nonsense with Shen Yuanhang and stood up directly. Now the disciples of Divine Dr. Hua are Grandpa's guests. Grandpa even said personally that all their requests must be met. Big brother will take care of it himself. After saying that, Shen Jing turned and left. Shen Yuanhang looked at the background of Shen Jing gloomily and clenched his hands suddenly. He didn't take those outsiders seriously. Even Hua Shifang, who is known as a miracle doctor in the outside world, is nothing in his eyes. He is just a powerless doctor. He just killed his apprentice. What kind of trouble can he cause? But he was worried about his status in Shen Mingtang's heart. Shen Mingtang has 100% right to designate a successor, and outsiders cannot influence his decision at all. He must maintain his leading position in Shen Mingtang's heart. After thinking for a long time, Shen Yuanhang pressed the intercom phone and said, "Go and send someone to send Chen Si to Ting Yuj." The housekeeper was startled for a moment and quickly responded, "Yes, young master." Chen Si, who was lying on the bed in his room, wrapped in bandages and screaming, was pulled up by the guard who suddenly kicked in the door. The wound on Chen Si's body was torn, and he suddenly started howling, "Ah, ah, ah, it hurts so much, it hurts me so much, what are you going to do?" The guard carrying him relayed Shen Yuanhang's meaning in a cold voice, "The eldest young master has ordered you to make amends to those people. If you can't make them forgive you, then your end will be death." Why? Chen Si was so shocked that he forgot about the severe pain on his body. Why would the young master do this? Obviously, it was the eldest young master who ordered him to deceive Nanyan and the others and lead them to Bishui Garden. Why are you asking him to apologize now? I'm going to find the eldest young master to find out. It was a matter of his life and death, and he couldn't just let it pass without knowing it. The eldest young master doesn't have time to see you. Also, the eldest young master said that you should take care of everything by yourself. If you dare to reveal that this matter has anything to do with the eldest young master, you will die. The eldest young master wants to treat him as an abandoned son. Chen Siru's expression became confused as if he was struck by lightning. When the two guards carrying him saw that he had calmed down, they pulled him out of the room without saying anything. Hashtag Tingyu Pavilion. Nanyan is in Qin Lu's room. The two are working together to crack the Sheng family's intranet. The more mysterious the Sheng family is, the more interested Nanyan becomes. Anyway, the Sheng family not only offended her, but also restricted their freedom and imprisoned them here. She had to find something to do for herself. Yan, come out for a moment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 490. Tingyu Pavilion. Nanyan is in Qin Lu's room. The two are working together to crack the Sheng family's intranet. The more mysterious the Sheng family is, the more interested Nanyan becomes. While he was busy, Hua Shifang's voice came from outside. "Yan, come out for a moment." Nanyan paused while typing on the keyboard, turned her head and said to Qin Lu, "Brother, please continue, I'll go out for a while." Qin Lu nodded calmly, "Well, go ahead." Pushing away the keyboard, Nanyan went outside. As she walked out, she was still a little confused as to what the master wanted from her. In the past, when I came to see her for something, I always came indirectly. This time, he called her out outside. Did he not want Qin Lu to hear it? Nan Yan was a little confused. After all, she was also worried about how to get the masters to agree to her being with Qin Lu. When she came out and saw a few people standing in the yard, she realized that she was overthinking it. It is clear. The master called her out, obviously for the sake of the man who was thrown to the ground. Fu Yubai, Gu Chen, and Sun Chen were all there. Gu Chen Zheng told Sun Chen with an angry face that Chen Si had deliberately led them astray and brought them to Bishui Garden in order to harm them. Master, if it weren't for senior sister Nan, senior brother Fu and Mr. Qin, we might have been bitten to death by poisonous snakes long ago. This person is simply too much. He clearly wanted to kill us and deliberately led us to that place. Not only were there venomous snakes, but there were poisonous snakes in other places, even on the road, on the door, and on the plants next to it. It almost happened to you and Uncle Hua. You will never see me, senior sister Nan, senior brother Fu and the others again. Gu Chen complained angrily to Sun Chen, and even added fuel to the fire. In fact, with Nan Yan here, they are not in any danger at all. The toxins in that yard were nothing more than child's play to Nan Yan. But this does not prevent him from filing a complaint. After all, the Sheng family has gone too far, and they actually wanted their lives as soon as they arrived. Sun Chan's face was cold and his anger was rising, but because Hua Shifang was there, he endured his temper and waited for Hua Shifang to speak. Hua Shifang's expression was stern, and his aura was solemn and sharp. He asked in a deep voice, "Yan Yan, is it what Gu Chen said?" He didn't care that he was kidnapped, forced, and put into dangerous situations, but not anyone who dared to touch his most precious little apprentice. In Hua Shifang's heart, Fu Yubai and his three brothers combined were not as important as Nan Yan. The main reason is that Nan Yan is a female apprentice, and the other three apprentices are all brats. How can a little girl be lovable? Master, this is indeed the case, but... Before Nan Yan finished speaking, Hua Shifang had already moved. Chen Si was whipped 3 times by Sheng Jing. Although the whipping would not kill anyone, Sheng Jing was very cruel, and the whippings tore his skin and flesh, and injured his muscles and bones. He was able to come here only because he was forcibly brought here by 2 guards. But Hua Shifang would not let him go just because he was injured. After confirming that what Gu Chen said was true and that the man in front of him really wanted to harm his precious apprentice, he went up directly and stuffed a pill into his mouth. Nan Yan raised his eyebrows. Unexpectedly, their master and apprentice tortured people in the same way. After all, as a powerful doctor who specializes in medicine and poisoning, using torture to torture people is far less simple and crude and convenient than using poison. Chen Si didn't react at first, but half a minute later, a shrill scream came from his mouth. He screamed heartbreakingly and rolled on the ground, not caring about the injuries on his body, almost destroying himself, wishing he could solve it himself. The 2 guards who sent Chen Si over on Shen Yuanhang's order felt chills running down their backs when they saw this scene. Ah! It hurts me to death, help! Chen Si scratched his neck with both hands, his face turned red from the pain, and finally struggled for nearly 10 minutes before he lost his breath. 2 guards. Pure Gu Chen. Gu Chen was a little disillusioned. Dr. Hua, who was like a god to him, turned out to be so ruthless at times. Of course, this is purely what Chen Si deserves. Who told him to be so brave and dare to touch Hua Shifang's disciples? The reason for guarding is because I don't know what to say or how to explain. Shen Yuanhang's order was to let Chen Si take all the responsibilities on himself, and to let Nanyan and the others spread their grievances on Chen Si. Don't mention this matter to Shen Mingtang, and don't let Hua Shifang and the others blame Chen Si. I hate the eldest young master. As a result, when Chen Si came, he was sent away by Hua Shifang with a pill without saying anything. Now how to do? The 2 guards looked at each other. What should they say? No one expected that this would be the case, and everyone was silent for a while. Nan Yan glanced at Hua Shifang, who was still angry, and asked the two guards coldly, "Thank you too for sending him over and leaving him to us. Do you have anything else to do?" A few cold glances made the two guards feel cold all over and their hearts trembled. The two stammered and shook their heads, "No. No more." Garda reacted quickly and explained quickly, "We were just ordered to send over those who made the decision without authorization and wanted to harm several distinguished guests. Since they have been sent over, we will leave first." Guard B also said quickly, "We will not disturb the distinguished guests and go back to resume our duties first." After the two guards finished speaking, they turned around and walked out quickly, as if they were being chased by something. After they left, Sun Chan asked Hua Shifang with some confusion, "Brother, why didn't you ask him just now who sent him to attack Yanyan and the others?" "So what if I ask?" Hua Shifang looked cold. Since he sent all the people here to let us deal with it, he obviously wanted to resolve the matter quietly and didn't want us to make any noise. Our situation is not very good. If we can save one thing, we will lose one thing. The look in Sun Chan's eyes was slightly startled, then he nodded and said, "That's right. They are all under house arrest in disguise, and their personal freedoms are restricted, so they should keep a low profile." Hua Shifang calmly ordered, "You and Gu Chen throw him out." "Yes, master/uncle." Fu Yubai and Gu Chen carried Chen Si and threw him to the gate of Tingyu Pavilion. Nan Yan said something to the two masters and went back. While she was out, Qin Lu kept looking for flaws in the Sheng family's intranet. It only took about 10 minutes, but a lot of progress was made. Seeing her coming back, Qin Lu was typing on the keyboard slowly and looked up at her. "What's going on?" Nan Yan rubbed her brows, sat next to him, and told him what happened outside. Qin Lu waited for her to finish speaking before asking, "Do you know who it is?" Did not ask. They didn't understand the situation of the Sheng family at all, and there was no point in figuring out who Chen Si belonged to. For now, the entire Sheng family is an enemy. Even though Sheng Jing seemed to be a gentle and affectionate person, she didn't have any good impressions of him. Just be wary. Nan Yan was not interested in wasting time on this topic and skipped it. After a moment of silence, he asked softly, "Brother, if the Sheng family doesn't let us go in 3 days, do you have a way to take us out?" If she was alone, it wouldn't be a problem to leave here. But the reality is that there are 6 of them, and their goal is too big. It's a bit difficult to leave without the Sheng family noticing. But when faced head-on, if you use force to escape, there will be certain risks. "Well, don't worry, you can leave at any time if you want to," Qin Lu said, and rubbed the soft top of her head, with a sharp look in his eyes. "No matter how strong the Sheng family is, it is just a family, and it is nothing in front of me. Today's era is no longer the same as before, and no one can trample the law at will, imprison others at will, and restrict the freedom of others." Nan Yan nodded in agreement. Then he looked at Qin Lu with a half-smile, "Brother, by the way, what is your status inside?" She had guessed before that Qin Lu's status would definitely not be low. But she didn't ask, and he didn't deliberately say it. As for the vest between the two of them, because she was not sure about their relationship before, she never asked or tried to expose it, but now that their relationship is over, it is no big deal to ask for some privacy. Qin Lu fondly caressed her tender white cheek with his fingertips. "You can take a guess." Nan Yan pursed her lips, "Then give me a direction." "Telling you the direction is equivalent to telling you directly." "Then it's hard to guess." "With my brother's aura and ability, his position must be high. I think there is only one person who best suits your status." Qin Lu was so amused by her that he laughed and stroked the top of her head twice more. Although Nan Yan didn't say it clearly, he could guess what she wanted to say. She would think highly of him and give him this answer as soon as he came up. That's definitely not the case. That position would exhaust people to death. Besides, I'm on a technical level, managing the institute. Everything related to scientific research is under my control. Nan Yan raised an eyebrow. This identity was somewhat beyond her expectations, but it was also within her expectations. Nan Yan gave Qin Lu a thumbs up without hesitation, and showed a naughty look like a girl, and praised, "Brother, you are awesome." She suddenly remembered that before she said she wanted to study genetic experiments, the dean of the sect had told her that this experimental subject would be difficult to pass the review. But later, without much obstruction, we got permission from above and passed. At that time, it seemed that she told Qin Lu about it. It seems that Qin Lu played a big role in her selection. Qin Lu pinched the tip of her nose. It's not easy to make a little girl admire you. I thought she would be surprised, but judging from her expression, it was obvious that she was just guessing. Nan Yan pulled his big hand down and said with a deep look, "Brother, do you always like to do good deeds without leaving your name?" She felt that this was definitely not the only thing Qin Lu was secretly helping her with. Some of them she guessed by herself, and some of them he might have done without her knowing at all. Was it that, if she hadn't found out on her own, he would have never told her? What a fool. I only know how to give, but I don't know how to ask for anything in return. That means she fell in love with him, otherwise wouldn't he have lost his wife and lost his army? Qin Lu lowered his head, rubbed his chin gently on the top of her head, and said in a gentle voice, "No matter how much I do for you, I am willing to do it." "Yan Yan, don't feel pressured," he chuckled. "Actually, I'm just afraid that you will be pressured, so I don't want to tell you, but you are so smart and sensitive. Since I will know sooner or later, why don't you tell me directly before doing this next time?" Qin Lu didn't respond to her, but held her head and kissed her lips. After a long while, he let her go. The two of them skipped this topic in tacit understanding and continued their previous work. The Sheng family had found a great expert in the industry to set up a firewall and protection network. Even Nan Yan and Qin Lu's cooperation took a lot of time. Mainly because, in order to avoid alarming the Sheng family, the two of them were subject to more restrictions and had to be more cautious. Finally, after 4 or 5 hours of strategy, they made a cave in the Sheng family's firewall and entered the internal network. Through the internal network, they also found out the secret that only the Sheng family knew. Hashtag. Shen Yuanhang pursed his lips. The eyes behind the lenses were gloomy and sharp, and his sinister aura was terrifying. The two guards who came back to report stood in front of him tremblingly, lowering their heads, not even daring to breathe. So, those people killed Chen Si without even asking. Shen Yuanhang's eyes were filled with anger. Of course, he was not angry because of Chen Si's death. In his eyes, Chen Si was just a dog, and life and death didn't matter. What made him angry was that Nan Yan and his group didn't know what was good for them. You have to look at the owner before beating a dog. Now the dog he sent was beaten to death by them, which was obviously a slap in his face. Suppressing his anger, Shen Yuanhang asked in a deep voice, "How did they kill him?" He underestimated these people and dared to kill them in the Sheng family. "Young master, the Chinese medicine doctor named Hua Shifang fed Chen Si a pill, and Chen Si died in less than 10 minutes, and he experienced very cruel torture before his death." Now the guards shuddered subconsciously whenever they thought of Chen Si's miserable condition, and layers of coldness could not help but climb up their backs. If Shen Yuanhang hadn't asked, he would definitely not want to recall the miserable scene again. For a pill. That can only be poison. And it's highly poisonous. The poison can make people endure the torture for more than 10 minutes before dying. It seems that their research on poison is definitely not bad. He couldn't help but think of his second brother who had died for 7 or 8 years. His second brother Sheng Wenziyi was a master of poison. In the Bishui garden, there are still many poisons that he researched, planted, and raised. Sheng Wenzi is a genius with extremely high talent in medicine. However, he doesn't like to cure diseases and save people. He prefers to study various poisons and often uses people to test poisons, which makes the Sheng family panic. Later, the old man saw that he didn't change after repeated teachings, so he made up his mind and threw him to the M country, asking him to reflect on himself. This time, he was gone for 5 or 6 years, and he never came back home once. Later, the news of his death came suddenly. He died from the poison he researched.